is like a dream come true.
I'm really happy to be here. I've learned about so many walls that can break.
You are dynamic. You have done earth-shattering stuff, and you're about to persuade us how to tear down the walls.
It can feel like the longest 3 minutes of your life or the shortest.
Seeing everyone sitting there and like looking at me was a whole new world.
To see them here on an international stage in front of so many prestigious judges and peers, it was incredible.
I hope that they maximize the opportunity and really smash the walls.
The room is like a powerhouse of thoughts.
People are really aiming for the moon with a lot of these exciting ideas.
So my goal of the project is to help people with Alzheimer's and to delay their pathology.
Please, raise your hand if you like magic.
Imagine a world without fossil fuels.
Really being able to select the best out of the best, that's probably the most challenging.
Well, a breakthrough winner should have had an original idea and a clever way of addressing it.
Impact on a global scale to have a sustainable solution.
For me, this peer group is inspiring me to make this world a better place.
The hope that clever young people with much talent can share with us gives us great optimism ultimately for the future.
No mai, haere mai, whakatau mai rā. Ko te kaupapa nui tēnei rā, ko whia te ārai ka turakina. Ke ngā kai whakawa, ki ngā kai whakataitai, kia kaha, kia toa, kia manawa nui. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Ko Troels Petersen. Hello, my name is Troels Petersen. I have the pleasure of being your MC today. I was just greeting you all, greeting distinguished guests, to our most important guest, of course, our presenters, but to everyone really. Presenters that have arrived here from all over the Motu. Welcome to the important discussions of the day, which, as we have seen, of course, is which wall will fall next. To our judges, to our competitors, be strong, be brave, be committed. Welcome, welcome, welcome thrice. It's a real pleasure to have you all here today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Welcome to this Falling Walls Lab event, Falling Walls Aotearoa, New Zealand. As I'm your MC, I have some practical health and safety comments to just start the day with. First of all, if there's a fire and the fire alarm will sound, follow the exit signs and meet on the parking lot out here. Earthquakes, drop, cover and hold, you know the drill. and follow the guidance from our wardens. Again, if we go outside, we meet out here. This building is very, very safe, I could tell you. It's actually a spillover from the emergency management. They come over here and use our building. So you're very safe in here, just want to tell you that. In case of smaller emergencies, perhaps, hopefully not, if somebody needs to use the wharepaku, the toilet, it's out through the door, down the end of the corridor, and to the right. Hopefully we won't have any emergencies there. And last but not least, Royal Society Taparang is a smoke-free place. Please don't smoke or use any e-cigarettes, etc. It's my real pleasure to just hand over the microphone to the Chief Executive of Royal Society Taparang, Paul Atkins, to do a few welcoming remarks to start off.
Thanks, Trolls. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Paul Atkins toka ingoa, ko ahau te tumu whakare o Royal Society Te Aparangi. Tēnā koutou, kia ora koutou katoa. As Trolls has already said, huge welcome. Already I'm feeling incredibly constrained and really feeling the pressure that some of you are going to be under shortly, because I'm standing in a box. Now I'm guessing that this box limits me as to where I'm allowed to stroll, given that this is going to be live streamed. And for somebody who tends to wander around with a microphone, this is incredibly intimidating. So I'm just getting a glimpse of what some of you are going to be under, the pressure, shortly. I want to say what a huge pleasure it is to welcome you all here today. No mai haere mai, you are really, really welcome. Because this, in many ways, exemplifies the very thing that we stand for. It is that creative thought. It is that innovation. It is that freedom to think for a future and about a future that is going to be better. How good is that? And how good it is that we can do these things in friendship and partnership. And I just want to acknowledge, and I'm going to hand over in a moment to Winnie, our friendship with our friends from the German embassy. This is such an important opportunity for everybody. And it is such a pleasure to have you here in our building. So that's all I really wanted to say. You are most welcome. Enjoy the day, even though some of you are going to be in this box and under huge pressure. I'm really piling it on now, aren't I? Forgive me. Enjoy. You are most welcome. And I'm going to hand over to Winnie to say a few words. Kia ora koutou.
Thanks, Paul, for this welcome. I wasn't so intimidated by the box, but I feel intimidated now a bit. My name is Winnie. I'm the Deputy German Ambassador. Kia ora to all you here. I'm really thrilled to be here. It's my second Falling Walls Lab, and I just enjoyed it immensely last year. It's just such a fantastic event for a diplomat, usually dealing a lot more with paperwork. Yeah. And I just guess, thinking along the same lines as Paul, that some of you might be nervous, and actually it's my job today, or the task I set, to make you a little less nervous. And I'm going to do that just in a bit, but first I feel I need to create some suspense, and how would you better do that than by introducing some facts and figures? And I feel, as a representative of the German embassy, I should bring your gaze to the fact that Germany and New Zealand are really great partners. Though maybe at first sight you wouldn't think it. If you have a look at the countries, the natural landscapes, the population size, traffic systems, you name it, we seem to be quite different, but this doesn't seem to be the case mentality-wise, at least not in the research cooperation sphere. So, one fact I didn't know before coming here, New Zealand has the longest standing bilateral research cooperation agreement with Germany. It was already concluded in 1977. And we also have a lot of joint funding programs. A lot of them you can see here, the AAD. There's also the Deutsche Forschungsgemeinschaft. There is the Julius van Haas Fellowship. So there are just a lot of opportunities for you to check out if you wanted to travel to Germany, if you wanted to do more, even apart and outside of this Falling Walls lab. MB invests in a research coordinator, that's Dr. Regina Eisert, which is quite something, and also she is always available if you have questions or an interest in research programs. And then what I personally like a lot, we are really very productive when it comes to the number of our joint research cooperation projects. So in the period from 2019 and 2023, and now, sorry, I have to look at my paper because I'm not so good with numbers. There were really, by far, the most co-publications with Germany from all EU member states. Those were 6,619, and France is on a very distant second place, with only 4,734. And also, you're a scientist, so you will know what an FCR and a publication count is. So all these publications are extremely performative in that respect. And among the granted EU Horizon grants, so the German, New Zealand projects after 1 year are now in second place. And it's a very tight second place. So, I mean, I think this all shows that we're really extremely well suited to work together as research partners. But then to become partners, we have to get to know each other in the first place. And whenever I talk to scientists, either in this country or my home country, they all agree on one thing. They say the personal relationship is crucial for successful joint research. And very often two people meet, they like each other, and then they set up a project around their respective ideas and interests. I mean, on a little bit critical note, in some ways it might be worth to turn this around a bit into a more strategic direction and say, okay, it's not just the people, we'll just set topics like set up a matchmaking portal, like I'm a scientist or a chemist, looking for a material scientist in order to make the world plastic free. Would be worth an idea. But anyway, even then, I think the personal relationship would count. And so for those of you lucky enough to travel to Berlin, even in this special year where we celebrate 35 years since the Berlin Wall came down, I think this is actually the biggest asset, this opportunity to network and to exchange with other people, to meet people, to make connections. But, and now I come back to my initial point, I think you don't have to be so overly nervous because you're all doing it right now. I mean, you're here, you have done some networking to come so far. You have met Te Aparangi, you will meet the judges, you will connect with all the people here in the room. So you have already done what this whole competition today, the whole Falling Walls Lab is about. So I just like to encourage you to enjoy this day, to share your unique ideas, to show a little bit of yourselves, of your endeavors, what makes you go around and active and get up every morning. I hope that's your research. I can tell you I will immensely enjoy the day, and I'm very thankful for everything you're going to present today. Thanks a lot. Vielen Dank.
Thank you, Winnie. I can hear this box has already got a life of its own. So, I thought I'd just take this opportunity to just quickly summarize why we're here today, what the Falling Walls is all about for some of you who might not know. Falling Walls, of course, is an opportunity for students, early career researchers, to explain their solution to a pressing challenge to a jury and try to convince this jury that the idea is original, that it's feasible, and that it has real impact. And all this in just 3 minutes. Time is an issue here, so this is going to be really interesting. So that's the gist of the Falling Walls Lab, and of course, if the idea has really impact, then it will break down walls. Historically, the Royal Society Te Aparangi has hosted these Falling Lab events since 2014. in collaboration with the German embassy. Thank you. And we've always had a very strong focus on trying to involve the Pacific Islands, researchers or students from the Pacific Islands as well. So that's why we every year invite 2 researchers from the Pacific Islands to be part of this event. Last year we were in the very fortunate situation that one of them was the runner-up of the event, which was an amazing achievement. So we ended up being able to send 2 finalists to Berlin last year, which everybody supported, which was a really great thing to do. Of course, Falling Walls Labs takes place in about 100 cities around the globe. You saw a map in the beginning in the video. Each lab has a winner. We will have a winner at the end of today. All the winners, you travel to the Falling Walls Lab final in Berlin in November, where you pitch your idea on the 9th of November, which was the day that the wall came down. Or the first hole, I don't think the whole wall came down, but never mind. The event is much more than that. It's also an opportunity for the finalists to meet and network. There's lots of networking opportunities. There are various workshops that they can attend to learn more about entrepreneurial activity, publishing, career development, and so on. So this is really a great opportunity. And if some of you want to hear more about what our previous participants in the final has done and what it's done for them, go onto our website and there will be small stories about all the participants. But enough about that. My next important job is just to present the jury to you. So we have some familiar faces from last year and some new faces. The jury is chaired by Professor Phil Lester. So Phil, of course, is a population ecologist at the Victoria University of Wellington, just up the hill. Rhys Firestone. So Rhys is Associate Dean Pacifica at the Public Health Center at Mahya University. She's got a strong interest in social, cultural inequalities in health, in particular around young Pacifica health with non-communicable diseases. Alex Garishkin. Alex is an associate professor and associate dean of engineering at the University of Canterbury. He is what are you really, Alex? A mathematician, computer scientist, coding whiz, who is using his skills to solve biological problems and probe in biological data. So welcome, Alex. Sai Louie. Sai Louie is from the University of Auckland School of Social Sciences, and she has a strong interest in Pacific jurisprudence, Pacific epistemologies, and Pacific research methodologies. So welcome. Then we have our non-scientists on the panel. First of all, we have Veronica Meduna. And I say non-scientist, but Veronica probably knows more about science than any of you. Veronica is a science journalist. She's currently the New Zealand editor of The Conversation. Before that, she hosted a science program on Radio New Zealand for many years and has written several science books as well. So should be careful to say a non-scientist. So welcome, Veronica. It's really nice to have you here. And last but not least, we have Monique. Monique Surges is the CEO of the German and New Zealand Chamber of Commerce, and she spends all her time trying to facilitate more business interactions between New Zealand and Germany. So she is a perfect fit for our jury. So thank you very much for being here, Monique. It's a pleasure. Thank you to you all. You'll have your work cut out during the day, but we'll get there in the end. I think that's all I had to say. I had to mention, if you want to use social media, can you go back one slide? These are our social media accounts. If you want to post about the event, please use the hashtag Falling Walls Lab. Thank you. Next. And before we start, I also just want to thank our supporters for this event. First of all, the German embassy. Without the German embassy, there wouldn't be an event, because they came up to us and say, we think you should do this in 2014, and we have done it ever since. But also thank the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, who is supporting this event for many years, and Euraxis and Nishan, who will talk to you later. So, without further ado and delays, I will present our first speaker. And our first speaker today is Alice Sai Louie from Lincoln Aquitech Limited at the University of Canterbury. And Alice is breaking the wall of hidden waters.
Shallow groundwater affects low-lying coastal regions, which are host to the largest concentrations of urban development on Earth, with an estimated 1.8 billion people exposed to flood risk. This will be further exacerbated by climate change, as sea level rise causes more severe flooding, coupled with rapid urbanisation. Groundwater flooding is flooding from below, where groundwater emerges at the surface, and the controls on groundwater flooding are poorly understood. Hazards associated with groundwater flooding include damage to infrastructure, such as inundated pipes, roads eroded from below, increased liquefaction vulnerability, and health issues arising from dampness. Additionally, it can compromise septic systems and landfills, spreading contaminants through local aquifers. We need to study the system as a whole to understand how sea level rise, groundwater rise, and heavy rainfall work together, because their combined effects will likely overwhelm our drainage systems, leading to flooding. Yet, despite its growing importance, we lack a method to monitor shallow groundwater accurately over large areas and in real time. I propose to break down the wall of hidden groundwater flooding hazards by utilising existing fibre optic telecommunication networks combined with distributed temperature sensing. This shoots lasers down fibre optic cables, and based on the backscattering of the return light, provides temperature measurements along the entire cable at a high spatial resolution. For my PhD, I have been using this method to quantify flow beneath braided rivers. However, there was great difficulty involved with installing the cables beneath the ground. So by repurposing existing unused dark strands of fibre optic telecommunications networks would have significant cost savings, and extensive networks already exist globally. I will combine this method with distributed acoustic sensing, enabling the fibre optic cables to be used as vibration sensors. And this could provide continuous real-time temperature and strain data at a high spatial resolution across large distances. This solution would provide real-time monitoring of shallow groundwater dynamics, revolutionising groundwater monitoring and informing flood forecasting. This will allow for councils to predict groundwater flooding for development planning purposes and to monitor existing infrastructure for predictive maintenance. By repurposing our existing fibre optic networks, we're creating a cost-effective, scalable system to safeguard our cities and communities against an often overlooked threat. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Jury, any questions for Alice? Veronica?
First of all, thank you for going first. That's such a right thing. I just wanted to One question for me to draw the link between the measurements you take, so temperature and vibration, to the actual what we understand about the groundwater movement.
Yes.
For the flooding, it must come up, and how can you read from the data you gather whether there's a rise or expansion or something?
Yeah, so for my PhD research, where I have fibre optic cables installed below a braided river, you get a different temperature signal where the ground is saturated versus unsaturated. And we're also hoping to be able to use the distributed acoustic sensing method to delineate basically, the extent of the saturated ground. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further quick questions? Rich?
Thank you for your presentation. I'm interested in how you might use this idea beyond New Zealand. So, as you know, in the Pacific, we have a climate issue and low-lying islands. So how might this idea be used in that context?
Thank you. Yeah, well, I would love to firstly use Christchurch as a case study, given there's extensive areas with shallow groundwater being above the depth of the fibre optic telecommunications networks, and first come up with a bit of a methodology for this method and acquire a machine, and then take that and apply that to the Pacific nations. Yeah.
Thank you, Alice. Really good presentation. Just when we start the clock, can we just do it when they start speaking? That would be. Thank you. Our next presenter is Baadsha from Fiji National University. Oh, sorry. And Baadsha is talking about breaking the wall of judicial insights. Thank you.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, my research focuses on breaking the walls of judicial insights, specifically focusing on its fundamental elements, that is, judicial independence and accountability in Fiji. This research is simply about how judges make decisions based on law and evidence, whilst at the same time required to give justifications. For example, imagine a judge who is politically affiliated. This is a violation of judicial independence. Now imagine a judge who is corrupt and faces no consequence. This is a violation of judicial accountability. These elements are essential to maintaining the rule of law and safeguarding democracy, so as to ensure that no one is above the law of any country. In Fiji, there hasn't been any study conducted to assess the legislative framework behind which the judiciary operates. Hence, there is a huge gap. The effectiveness of our judicial system cannot be understood. In theory, of course. This is the same for other developing Pacific Island nations as well. So, how will I do my research? I have conducted a comparative study using international standards such as those of the United Nations Basic Principles on the Independence of the Judiciary, alongside practices of well-established judicial systems such as those of England and Australia, provides a solid foundation for evaluating the state of Fiji's judiciary. The significance or the importance of this research is as follows. Firstly, it will safeguard democracies by promoting the rule of law and public confidence in the judiciary. In Fiji, it will, if necessary of course, provide evidence-based recommendations for law reform to strengthen judicial regulation. Globally, it will serve as a guide for those countries who want to assess and improve upon their judicial systems. Ladies and gentlemen, imagine finding yourself in a courtroom. Your innocence clear to you, but hanging in the balance. In that critical moment, would you be more confident knowing that the judiciary is both independent and accountable? When these elements are compromised, they create barriers to justice. My research attempts to break down any such potential barrier, just like the fall of the Berlin Wall. Thank you.
Thank you, Baadsha. Any questions to Baadsha?
Vinaka, Baadsha, thank you for your presentation. I just had a question around legal plurality, or the plurality, plural legalities in the Fijian context. So given that you're talking about how judges make decisions, how does the plural systems within Fiji affect judicial decision making?
Essentially, I'll answer the first. Thank you for your question. I'll answer the first part of the question as well. So basically, judges all over the world, they make decisions based on law and evidence, and they are supported by a legal structure which is usually found within constitutions or legislative frameworks. My study here attempts to do a comparative study using international studies and practices of other countries to assess their compliance or in terms of international standards. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other quick questions?
So I'm wondering about the pathway to impact. So if your study is carried out and successful, so how would that impact the system? So what can it change going forward? For judges that the study has identified or has indicated of not working as they expected.
Sorry, could you repeat your question?
So just to summarize, so I'm wondering about the pathway to impact. So how would you implement your studies in real life?
Thank you. So currently my study is doing a comparative study of the legislative framework. Depending on the outcome of the research, because I'm not going to speculate on the outcome of my research. If there are mechanisms available to strengthen judicial regulation in Fiji, then this would essentially or mostly involve law reform. And my research will, if necessary, of course, depending upon research outcome, provide evidence-based recommendations for law reform, which of course the policymakers will attempt to include in the laws of Fiji.
Thank you.
Thank you, Baadsha.
Thank you.
Our next presenter is Carol Martinez Camacho, who is breaking the wall of definitions of life.
What is life? In biology classrooms worldwide, we are taught a simple answer. Life is cells. This is a classical cellular model for undergraduates in science careers and the scientists of the future. And it represents what the fascination of complexity in science. But what do we overlook, what we learn about this marvelous and intricate structure? The cellular-based view of life that began to be articulated in the 17th century has profoundly shaped our relationship with nature, leading us to marginalize the environment and the interconnectedness, portraying an individualistic and isolated view of life. But the cell, as a self-contained unit, actually represents an impossibility of life. So what if we go beyond the cultural context in which the science of biology and the cell model were developed? As this artwork shows, for indigenous cultures around the world, the air, the rivers, and the territories are living entities that nurture and sustain a community of humans, non-humans, and more than humans. As part of our breakthrough solution, this dissertation aims to introduce the microbiome as the fundamental unity of life, through a written case study, highlighting the community-based feature of the microbiome, recovering the value of the surrounding environment and diversity. So this is an opportunity to challenge students to move to a collective worldview, collective central worldview, including nature as a subject. Also, it could allow us to start a conversation with indigenous communities about life in the process of reimagining science education in the Anthropocene. In the middle of the humanitarian and environmental crisis we all are facing, we need to break the wall of the scientists cellular-based definition of life and rethink what is life. So, thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Any questions for Carol?
Sure, thank you. Really interesting concept. I guess the microbiome is already taught in a lot of schools and that sort of thing, in universities already. It's there. How would you challenge or advance or make a difference around that from what it's done already?
Well, first of all, replacing the cell as the introduction of biology, because that's still in most of the, if not all of the biology textbooks. So replace the cell as the introduction to life and put in the microbiome. So we could really get a more holistic view of what life is based on the interconnectedness and the necessity of other beings there, of plurality, diversity. But also, the idea is to not just be just biology oriented. We need to also talk about indigenous worldviews, and the proposal is that the microbiome can allow us to have that conversation, but not the cell. So that's also.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Quick question from Alex.
Yeah, just a quick question. So, one of the reasons that the cell might be central to biology is the tremendous amount of information that is contained inside the cell in DNA, and the tremendous computations that are happening on RNA and protein levels. So, if you zoom out and I guess teach biology on the microbiome level, so would there be a way to not lose all that tremendous information that is contained inside cells?
Yes, because the microbiome comes from all the new technologies in omics, genomics, transcriptomics, metabolomics. So it still represents the complexity of, or this deeper knowledge that we gain from the new methodologies. But it still also, it's always like localized in the context. It never takes out the context. So we have the microbiome of the kitchen, the microbiome of the bathroom, the microbiome of our hand, of our stomach, but it's always in the context. So not as the cell, that the cell is very uncontextualized.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carol.
Yeah.
Our next presenter is Daiana Yedgey, Breaking the Wall of Dementia Diagnosis. Welcome, Daiana.
I want you to imagine you look at someone you love and there is no recognition in their eyes. There is no sadness and grief quite like it. I've recently been faced with this experience. And my auntie, even now, when she forgot her family and can barely speak, she still asks, why me? Even though we don't have the answers yet, there's many researchers working in dementia research, including me. My name is Daiana, and I'm trying to break the walls of dementia diagnosis. Alzheimer's and Parkinson's are neurodegenerative disorders associated with accumulation of phosphorylated tau and alpha-synuclein. It is now known that the majority of patients with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's present with olfactory dysfunction many years prior to any other clinical symptoms. It is also important to note that olfactory epithelium is the only structure where neurons have a direct connection from the environment to the brain. All of these observations led to the formation of the olfactory vector hypothesis, which suggests that an environmental factor enters the nasal cavity, interacts with the olfactory neurons, and then triggers the pathology that moves to the olfactory bulbs that are directly connected to the brain. New Zealand is unique as we have access to the whole olfactory epithelium. And it allows us to study the whole structure rather than the small snippets. My work focuses on phosphorylated tau aggregations within the phosphorylated tau and alpha-synuclein aggregates, on how they present on their distribution and whether we can use the nose as an early diagnostic tool for dementia diagnosis. On the figure on your right, you can see how olfactory neurons in purple and pathological aggregates in beige and pink are distributed within the nasal epithelium. From this, I was able to measure that the majority of pathology is actually localized to places with olfactory neurons, which means that if we find a way to target olfactory epithelium during the biopsies, we have a better chance at finding early pathology, which means we can help in early dementia diagnostics. These images show that I have found evidence of phosphorylated tau within olfactory epithelium, olfactory nerve tract, glomeruli of the olfactory bulbs, and deeper layers of the olfactory bulbs, which means that the pathology is present in every structure in the pathway from the olfactory epithelium to the bulbs that are directly connected to the brain. And as Pat Samet once said, why me? Why me with dementia? Like with my auntie, this question haunts many patients with dementia. And I like to believe that all of these findings bring us one step closer to finding the answers and helping these patients survive and giving their families one more chance at being recognized.
Thank you, Daiana. Any questions for Daiana?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm wondering, what am I wondering about? Sorry. Why is it important to diagnose dementia early, and how does it compare to genetic tests for early dementia diagnosis?
Well, actually, majority of neurodegenerative conditions are sporadic rather than genetic. There is definitely a genetic aspect, but usually it encompasses 10% of population, which means that 90% is actually sporadic. It is important to find it early because, as we know, neurodegenerative disorders means exactly that your neurons die. And even though we can return neurons, there's not always a chance that we'll do it all in the correct way or how they develop, which means that we might not actually be bringing the same memories or the same things to the person. So to find the dementia early, it means that we can actually use preventative methods, which means that we will stop the death of neurons rather than trying to return the neurons that might go the wrong way.
I'm just interested about the samples that you're using. Are they elderly samples, and the sense of olfactory? I mean, does that decline as we get older? So how are you measuring the olfactory sense?
This actually is a fun question. Olfactory epithelium there's many theories of how it's distributed, and one of the theories is that it does diminish with age, but the thing is it diminishes from the moment you're born. So it's not, it does diminish as all senses do with age, but because dementia is a subject that usually affects people who are older, we're lucky to have multiple samples from early to the late stages of dementia, so we're able to kind of look at more morphological changes.
Thank you, Daiana. The next presenter is Ejovi Abafe from Massey University's Reddit Institute, Breaking the Wall of Micronutrient Malnutrition. Welcome.
Kia ora. The result of our food system is a paradox. We are producing more food than any time in history. Yet, in 2023, over 2 billion people still remain deficient in one or more form of nutrient, notably of iron and zinc. These deficiencies are not just colors on the map. They have real consequences, contributing to impaired cognitive development, weaken the immune system, and increase mortality rate, especially in vulnerable population. The question is, how can we ensure that our food system not only feed the world, but also nourish it? This is where my research comes in, by identifying the most nutrient-dense crop that can be cultivated sustainably to improve micronutrient intake. I selected some of the most studied crops known for their potential to address micronutrient deficiencies and applied a nutrient scoring system to rank these crops based on their potential to meet a nutrient requirement. Crops such as soybean, among others, showed promising potential to address iron and zinc deficiencies. But it doesn't stop there. I then conducted a global cropland suitability assessment to identify suitable land where these nutrient-dense crops can be produced. This ensures that we produce the right crops in the right places, maximizing both yield and nutritional impact. The implications of my research are profound, with potential to transform how we think about food production and nutrition. By focusing on nutrient density and land suitability, we can target micronutrient deficiencies at their sources, especially in regions and populations where these deficiencies are common. In conclusion, by breaking the walls of micronutrient malnutrition, we can build a future where every person has access to the nutrient they need to lead a healthy, productive life. And my research provides a roadmap for how we can achieve this, ensuring that our global food system are not just productive, filling our plate, but truly nourishing our bodies. Thank you.
Thank you, Ejovi. Any questions?
Sounds really, really cool. It's amazing nobody's done this before to an extent that looked at the micronutrients. Nobody's done this before?
No, nobody.
Nobody. Yeah. And you had a slide up there saying soybeans?
Yeah, soybean, yeah.
Is one of the ones that came through in terms of being really
in terms
useful?
of addressing iron and zinc deficiencies.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. It's kind of a follow-up question about a lot of food would distribute. Would your proposal also be to basically grow foods nearer to where people, can grow them, but also then consume them? So
yes.
Breaking the wall of this distribution system that wastes a lot along the way?
I am particularly looking at the deficiency prevalent in different regions, and also looking at potential crops from primary production perspective to address these deficiencies. Yeah, so if let's say a country is iron or zinc deficient, I look at what this country is already producing and what they can actually produce in terms of addressing that issue that they are having. Okay. Yeah, so.
Thank you, Ejovi. Yeah. Our next presenter is Evelyn Wen from New Zealand's Transport Agency, Waka Kotahi, and the University of Canterbury. Evelyn is breaking the wall of public transport access.
Question: how do you commute every day? If it wasn't public transport, what stops you from using it? Was it unreliable, too crowded, or too far from your homes? You are, of course, exempted from this question if you walk or cycle. So in the field of transportation planning, it's commonly accepted that people are willing to walk up to 400 meters to a bus stop, 800 meters to a train station. If they live beyond this range, they are more likely to drive. So we take trains in Wellington as an example. To encourage people living beyond the range to also take trains, we propose free carpooling facilities and paid regular car parks at the train stations. So thinking how pricey it is to park in town. However, if you share a ride to a train station, then your parking is free. Suppose modifying the car park system could alter commuter behaviors in a way. It then comes to developing a data-driven solution that integrates both collective commuter behaviors modeling and service schedule optimization and decision-making in a highly dynamic and uncertain environment. Based on our initial spatial modeling, it is expected to increase the daily commuters by 1,500. Therefore, an additional revenue of around 6 million may be generated per annum from those train fares and parking fares. With this way, we got the anticipated revenue to be reinvested back to the network to increase the service operations. For example, service frequencies during peak hours. Therefore, we are improving both the access to public transport and the operational efficiency on the network without challenging much on the current funding model for the existing services. Beyond this, share riding itself also has the potential to enhance community bonds and social connections. So ultimately, our study offers a sustainable approach to linking homes, workplaces to public transport in the urban setting. So with more people breaking their walls to access public transport, we are building smarter, greener, and more inclusive cities that work for everyone. Thank you.
Any questions for Evelyn?
I have a quick question about scalability of this approach. So I can totally see how that might work in Christchurch, but what about other cities, bigger cities with different public systems? And for instance, we're breaking walls to Germany to some extent, and public transport system there is very good. Why can we not just copy that in New Zealand?
So we are taking Wellington as a case study in this research, but it's targeted for cities that are similar to Wellington in a way. For example, the similar density of suburbs outside the central city, and geographical conditions like the distance from suburbs to the cities, and the culture that is being relatively more car-oriented. So yes, it might not be really targeting Christchurch, but for cities with a larger public transportation scale and population scale. For example, Wellington, Auckland, or even some cities, some European cities or North America.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering whether there's been other work that's done in this area. In Europe, for example, they have excellent public transportation systems. So are you aware of anything that's similar to what you're presenting?
So the thing is, I do know that for some cities with larger population scales and economic scales, they do have way more advanced public transport infrastructure. And public transport may already be the first option for their commuting journeys. So especially in some Asian metropolises, like Singapore, Hong Kong, or even Beijing. So I'm from Beijing, and I know that more than 10 million people are commuting on the public transport network, which is a bit far away from the New Zealand nature. So we are trying to build on what's existing here rather than demolish everything and rebuild from scratch, which is making it more feasible.
Thank you, Evelyn. The next presenter is Hadi Vatankhah Ghadim from the University of Canterbury. He's talking about breaking the wall of trans-Tasmanian isolation.
Wow, this is totally intimidating. Yeah, I get you now. Okay, great. Nice. Taking a look at the most recent news headlines we have here, these news headlines reflect one extreme reality we all have experienced this winter, which is New Zealand have gone and is going through a dry winter, a record-breaking dry winter. And that have caused our hydropower reservoirs to meet a kind of anytime low levels of available variable hydropower capacity. Taking a sample day from August 29th, we can see the generation mix in the grid, but imagine if kind of a time in the future that with our dwindling gas resources, we have no coal and gas, and besides we have limited available variable hydro, which kind of gives us this feeling that we will not survive a supply shortage in the future in the New Zealand's current energy system. So what's our proposed solution for that? It may sound crazy, but we want to have a cable between New Zealand and Australia with an estimated distance of around 2,500 kilometers, estimated construction cost around $40 billion, and 3 GW of proposed capacity, annual operation and maintenance cost of around $280 million per year, and assumed transmission efficiency of 90% based on the currently longest operational subsea cable, which is around 760 kilometers only between Denmark and United Kingdom. And why we believe this link would work, it is because this graph mainly. This is the spot monthly electricity price differences between New Zealand and Queensland. Taking the worst time of the time horizon we have analyzed here, we can see that even in the occasion of dryer in New Zealand, we have the opportunity to both import cheap renewable electricity from Australia and export electricity from here in New Zealand from our hydropower reservoirs, or in the future with the expanded electricity system, which is mainly based on the solar and wind power. And that would give us the competency in the market because renewables is cheap. Considering the capacity of that link only 1 gigawatt, which gives us an estimated construction cost of around 5 billion New Zealand dollars, we are expecting to have an annual import-export benefits of around $3.5 billion. These are preliminary results, and definitely this will change if the generation mix in the electricity grid in New Zealand change in the future and it becomes hopefully cheaper. And hopefully we believe that this will break the wall of trans-Tasman isolation. Thank you so much.
Any questions for Hadi?
Yeah, hit me.
Thank you, Hadi. There's just more clarification. Have you considered the, I think now scrap proposal to have a hydro battery system where a storage lake is used to?
Yeah, exactly.
As storage?
Yeah, the previous downscaling of the cable to 1 gigawatt, which was the initial kind of proposal for the Lake Onslow project, was to show that actually the project's cost is not that much different with Lake Onslow, but one problem with Lake Onslow is that Lake Onslow tended to cost more in the future than what it was proposed before. And also with the dryer issues we're experiencing, and probably we may experience in the upcoming years, maybe having an actual import and export of energy to another country with different timing and also kind of different generation mix would help us to both attract investments in our renewable energy environment, and also to kind of provide future fundings for the projects like Lake Onslow, which is purely we believe it is beneficial for energy system in New Zealand, but right now it's been scrapped just based on the cost. Yep, for sure, yeah. Yeah, definitely, that's the ideal.
Thank you, Hadi. Alex, you have a quick question?
Yeah, just a quick one. Yeah, I can totally see how that can break the walls for New Zealand, and the economic case is right there. But I'm wondering if you can think of anywhere else in the world not so centrally located as New Zealand, such a project benefiting.
Well, my personal vision is that we should create second supergrid of the world here in Pacific and Southeast Asia. First supergrid is Europe. Obviously, we all know that European countries are totally interconnected between each other. Maybe with this link, this can be a starter, because a similarly crazy idea is currently being considered between Australia and Singapore. And if we build this link, which is shorter in the distance compared to that one, which is around 4,200 kilometers, if we build this link, that will kind of facilitate the future efforts to connect all these nations in this region, and furthermore provide opportunities for New Zealand and Australia to tap into the larger energy market of Asia, which is a great opportunity from economic point of view at least.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hadi.
Thank you so much.
Our next presenter is Jack Scanlan from Massey University, Breaking the Wall of Racism in Youth Justice.
Thanks for not asking. Ram raid shopkeepers, robbed, increased youth crime. South Auckland, we are ashamed of you, but we'll never ask you how you feel. Who has the answers? Keyboard warriors, for example, John Doe from predominantly Whaiao, New Zealand. He's a white boomer, never lived in South Auckland, worked hard all his life, can't understand how them coconuts can't conform. Oh, their solutions. Thanks for asking. Military boot camps, longer prison sentences, bring back dawn raid, sorry, not sorry. All ideas set to replay by the Bloods and Crips of the gang called government. By the way, keyboard warrior, you hide behind your fake name profile and picture because the only thing that is real is that you own the businesses in South Auckland. Thanks for not doing. Who has the answers? The academic researcher who at the end of their surname has the A, B right through to Z qualification. Surely with all those qualifications and credentials, you know everything. That too, because you've written books on gangs, youth crime. South Auckland is bad, by the way, if you didn't know. Oh, that's right, you've been on TV, interviewed on the news straight after another gang shooting in South Auckland. They answer the white reporters' questions, nodding together in agreement, almost finishing each other's sentences that South Auckland is the problem. So much so that those of us that are coconuts from South Auckland start believing we are the problem. As for the researcher, if they were ever asked by a South Aucklander which place has the best steak and cheese pies, he or she would respond, I don't know, I've never been to South Auckland. Thanks for not seeking. 685 to the world through the Red Sea of Samoan pride, fluttering in the wind, accompanied by the deep bass of the Samoan siren sounds. The capital of South Pacific, Māngere 275, taken over by the parade of Samoan pride, where South Auckland is not the place of shame, but the place to be. Thank you, Tō Samoa, for putting us on the map. Suddenly, Samoans are seen, heard globally, and non-Samoans adopting a Judith Collins approach that their mothers, brothers, neighbours are Samoan too. So talofa, I'm Samoan too. Surely our non-Samoans will not forget the Samoans to the next catch cry, up the waz. So what about the Samoans from South Auckland? They came to this promised land of milk and honey. They're wanting to be asked, wanting to be heard. Thank you for your attention.
Sure, Jack. Any questions?
Talofa Whafte and Jack. I just had a question around the impact of the model that you have in terms of taking it out more worldwide.
Yeah, thank you. The beauty of the model is I named it Ulula'au after my late mother. Everything I know has not been in the university and the work that I've done, but from my mother's teaching. I think for me, what it means globally is that she's carried me my whole life, so I get to carry her around the world. You can't go beyond a mother's love for a child and that power of transformation. And knowing our Samoan mothers, I know that she's watching me and say, how do you put me out there? But it is about that. It is that redemption story. Thank you.
Riz?
Whawhate lava. Racism is such a complex issue.
Yes.
In terms of impact, at what stage in life do you think this will have the greatest impact in terms of applying your model across the life course?
Yeah, I think like anything, when we talk about racism, it creates an angst and all that. I think like anything else, we need to normalise racism. Call the elephant in the room. And it's not about putting blame or shame to a situation, but having those, I suppose, courageous conversation that starts from the primary school right through to university and all that. But it needs to be a conversation that needs to be said.
Kia ora, Jack. Thank you. Our next presenter is Jeff Lang from Lincoln Agritech, Breaking the Wall of Earthquake Forecasting. Welcome.
Okay, what does an earthquake forecast tell us? Well, in this example, it indicates in yellow which regions are at greater risk of severe ground shaking. Forecasts like this are important. For instance, they will have influenced the design of this building and our chances of walking back out. The more observations we have of past earthquakes, the better our forecasts can be. But in New Zealand, this is tricky. We are a young nation and our earthquake records are short. We can extend these records, by dating damage features like these, but from ancient earthquakes. But erosion complicates things and, wipes out these features, erases them from the record within a few thousand years. What if we look below the surface, away from erosion, like in caves? It turns out caves preserve evidence of earthquakes, and not only for a few millennia, but for tens of thousands of years. I've been working on this with the research team, cave research team, and what we've found is that the best evidence of earthquakes in caves is actually hidden in the chemistry of these formations. How does it get there? Well, when the rock above a cave gets fractured during an earthquake, it releases extra magnesium into the groundwater, which seeps into the caves as drips. Now, in the caves there are also stalagmites like this, which grow upwards, layer by layer, using minerals from the drip water. So when the drip water has more magnesium than usual, it forms a magnesium-rich layer in the stalagmite. Imagine if we could slice open a stalagmite like this, measure its chemistry from top to bottom, and produce a record of major earthquakes based on its magnesium. Well, we tested this idea on this stalagmite from near the Alpine Fault with some promising results. Not only does it contain evidence of earthquakes, contains evidence of major earthquakes that correlate with known Alpine Fault events. Not only does it do that, but this stalagmite record extends much further and contains evidence of earthquakes as yet unknown to science. So, to summarize, let's put on our helmets and break down the wall of earthquake forecasting. Thanks.
Kia Jeff, any questions for Jeff?
Sounds like a novel approach and really interesting. Would you need a network of these sort of cave systems throughout New Zealand that you'd be able to utilise, you'd have to utilise to localise where the events occurred?
Yes, no, that's a very good point. So that's the, the stretch goal is to reproduce this kind of study at multiple caves around New Zealand, and then correlate events in each record. Well, it's really like regions like the Hikurangi subduction margin, which are high seismic hazard in New Zealand, but poorly understood in terms of the earthquake record. This would be a way of detecting in the past when there's been potentially extensive subduction earthquakes, because we'd expect to see events in multiple cave records that happen at the same time over a large area. So that's a good point.
Just a quick follow-up. The magnesium, can it be something else that would cause it? You say that it matches the known earthquake record so far, but can you exclude that it's not coming from something else?
That's a very good question. So, there are other processes that can generate more magnesium. So we're looking at magnesium to calcium ratio in particular, and there are other processes related to climate that can do that. But the magnitude of increase that we expect from this mechanism is up to 10 times the normal magnesium to calcium ratio in the stalagmite. And on top of that, we have other tools in the stalagmite, like isotope or other elements, and then magnesium and calcium isotopes, potentially to tease apart the different processes that could be affecting this magnesium enrichment.
Thank you.
Kia ora, Jeff. The last presenter before lunch is Joseph Balfe from the University of Otago, breaking the wall of asthma. Kia ora, Joseph.
Today, the lives of more than 1,000 people will be cut short because of an asthma attack. And the very sad thing is most of these deaths are actually preventable due to a simple delay in obtaining inhaled medications during the final attack. You see, when your airways begin to constrict, a process otherwise known as bronchoconstriction, it's only a matter of minutes before the inhaled medications can no longer reach the target areas. The target areas being the deep, smaller airways within the lungs. In this context, timing is absolutely crucial in the management of severe asthma attacks, as it becomes a race to beat the obstruction of the airways. I'm currently one of 597,000 New Zealanders using inhaled medications to manage their asthma, and while these are the gold standard treatment, we still have roughly 7,000 hospitalisations per year, costing over $1 billion to New Zealand healthcare system annually. These inhaled medications also come with a variety of side effects, but worst of all, overuse of these medications can actually worsen the condition over time due to chronic pharmaceutical exposure, ultimately increasing one's risk of an asthma attack. To address these issues, we introduced the Ventimate, our innovative wearable bronchodilator device that is rapid acting and pharmaceutical free. Our patented technology works by non-invasively stimulating the nerve pathway that's responsible for opening the small airways. So far, we've shown in 3 randomized placebo-controlled trials that we can prevent exercise-induced bronchoconstriction in healthy humans by non-invasively opening the small airways in real time. Now, fortunately, with support from Te Toki Mata Order, we're conducting a large-scale clinical trial in the asthmatic population to clinically validate our technology. Our ultimate goal is to develop a device that works as a closed-loop system, meaning that it will continuously monitor for an asthma attack and immediately apply stimulation before it becomes a life-threatening emergency. And so by reducing the time to intervention in a pharmaceutical-free manner, I believe this technology has the potential to revolutionise the way in which we manage respiratory conditions. And so I hope you'll join me on this mission toward reducing the burden of asthma on the healthcare system and ultimately the global mortality of asthma attacks. Thank you.
Kia ora, Joseph. Any questions?
I've got more. Again, a clarification, perhaps more than a question. You mentioned the results you already have on exercise-induced asthma. How would you extrapolate from there on other non-exercise-induced attacks? Would it be the same?
So it would be, so we'd clinically validate this in an asthmatic cohort by having them take mannitol powder or hypertonic saline, which actually induces constriction in a much more controlled environment. So our exercise-induced asthma is a condition in itself. That's the next step we're going to do.
Any other questions?
Just a really quick one. So I've noticed the logo of New Zealand IP office, so I'm guessing you patented that in New Zealand. Why New Zealand? Why New Zealand only?
It's just what I have access to. I did this research at the University of Otago, and our tech transfer office works with the New Zealand Intellectual Property Office.
So are you aware of any international analogues?
No, we were able to patent this because there's no prior art, and we're able to proceed with that.
Cool. Thank you.
Sai Louie, did you have a question?
Just a very quick question, because you mentioned or inferred that the populations that often are most affected are those that have, in terms of the respiratory problems, that are equity populations that find it difficult to access healthcare. What is the cost associated, perhaps, for those populations to access this?
To access this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very valid question. So ideally, we'd hope to have this available in the clinic, perhaps in rural GP. And the good thing about a device is that nobody has to keep going to the clinic for repeat prescriptions of inhalers. So ideally, the device would be rechargeable and they can have it for the whole time. So hopefully in that way, we can reduce the cost, especially for inequitable access. Yeah.
Kia ora, Joseph. What a fantastic way to end the first session, and what a fantastic set of speakers. Congratulations to you all. It's been really enjoyable. We have lunch now, and then we meet back here at about 1:35, so we can start on time. And apologies for being a little bit late so far. So just ask Mark to do a short karakia. You all enjoyed your lunch, most of you, particularly the ones who have already done their presentation, I presume. I enjoyed mine, in case you want to know. Okay, we are straight back into it. And our first presentation in this second half is from Mahya Tavan from the Reddit Institute, Massey University, Breaking the Wall of Diet Sustainability. So, welcome.
The food that we eat every day is responsible for 30% of greenhouse gas emissions. We need to do something about it. But here's the challenge. How do we find foods that are good for us and good for the planet and are also not the polar opposite of what we are used to eating? To solve this problem, I've designed an innovative software called the IOTA model. IOTA simulates sustainable diets that meet nutritional, environmental, and economic targets, doing all this while remaining acceptable and realistic. Now, I'd like you to imagine stepping inside the calculation engine of the IOTA software, where the sustainable diets of the future are being programmed. Welcome to the IOTA universe. Here we have different information regarding the food that we eat. Every food in the IOTA model has its own profile, much like a dating app, but for foods. Instead of people, we have carrots, bacon, and milk. Every consumer group also has a profile with their age and gender-specific nutrient requirements, as well as their sustainability goals. And most importantly, their budget. IOTA processes all this data using a technique called linear programming. It goes through all this information and finds the best combination of foods for matching the consumer's needs. After doing many calculations, it lands on the best matching diet for meeting the sustainability needs of that particular consumer. What we found so far is that sustainable diets don't look the same for everyone everywhere, because our nutritional requirements and our dietary habits are not the same for everyone everywhere. It is important for us to realize the differences between our dietary habits and eating patterns. What makes IOTA stand out is its incredible adaptability and accessibility. Whether you're a scientist, a policymaker, an educator, IOTA is here to help you find sustainable solutions that are attainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahya. Any questions?
Cool. That sounds really interesting. It's based on a group thing, so it couldn't be. Could you tailor it to individuals so that this individual was eating too much bacon and?
Yeah. That's definitely possible, but what we are working with are the consumer groups, and we get our data from the nutrition surveys, for example, the adult nutrition surveys in New Zealand. So we have the consumers group by group based on their age and genders.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you for that. How might this model be used for other groups around the world? And also just a comment about the nutritional survey. The last survey was done in 2009?
Ancient, I know.
Yes. So I know that that needs to be updated. So any comments around that too, please?
Yeah. It definitely needs to be updated. So one of the limitations of our model is that we rely on external sources of data. We don't collect our own data. And whatever limitations that those data sources have, it will be carried over to our data. So for New Zealand, you are definitely right. We have the very old nutrition surveys from 2009, and we are way overdue for new nutrition surveys. So if there are policymakers here, if there are people who can fund research, please do.
Thank you, Mahya. Our next presenter is Mamehgol Yousefidashliboroun from Ag Research in the University of Canterbury, breaking the wall of agriculture systems. Welcome.
Kia ora. I want you to picture the future of farms that provide food for 50 billion people by 2050. To meet this demand, we need to increase our production by at least 60%. But we are facing triple challenges: increasing demand for resources, dangerous climate change, and global warming are disrupting our agricultural system and crossing the critical threshold. So we know that farmers have long relied on their experience and gut feeling to make decisions on a daily basis. But with these complexities adding up, this method falls short. Farmers, along with other industries, have realized the power of data and how that can minimize the uncertainties within these unpredictable events and help them to make better decisions. But the problem here is the technology adoption is low, with 76% of the farmers, New Zealand farmers, showing a lack of confidence in using technology. So you might ask why, because these technologies do not integrate well with their existing solutions, adding another layer of complexity, as well as overwhelming number of solutions and applications. So we at the School of Product Design, University of Canterbury, in partnership with Ag Research, tackling this problem. Our solution is an AI assistant, a conversational agent that can streamline multiple sources of information, adapt to the user behavior, augment their information, and provide context-specific information, as well as helping them to access information on a timely basis, make their decision-making better, and ultimately improve their production. So our goal is focusing on the interface design and the human behavior, and to build the collaboration between technology and the farmers, build that trust, improve their confidence, and ultimately they can adopt technology that can help them to make better and efficient decisions. So we must get smarter about it. We must act now if we don't want to fail to feed 50 billion people in less than 30 years from now. So looking ahead, New Zealand agricultural practices have significant implications for the global food security and environmental sustainability. Together, we can break down the wall between farmers and the technology, and ultimately, we can feed the world for generations to come.
Thank you. Any questions from Mamehgol? Monique?
So obviously digital farming or smart farming has been around for a little while now.
That's right.
And normally the issue is the compatibility with the actual machinery. So does this interface at all with the machinery?
That's a great question. So we talked with the farmers from South Island, Goa, and different parts of New Zealand. And one of the problems they have is they have machinery, they have different sources of application, each work independently, and doesn't streamline, or it's just make overwhelming number of information, and it doesn't help them what to do, giving the proper recommendations. So the interface, can be connected to other machineries, as well as other sources of applications in their mobile phone or in their any other source.
So when you make those recommendations, do you integrate the data from specific farmers to make recommendations specifically for them, or it's more of a general knowledge that is being pulled from various sources?
So it will be both, combination of both, general knowledge from general and specialized knowledge from other sources, external sources, as well as because this interface can converse in a natural language with farmers. So when farmers, obviously they are on the field and they have so much information by observing their livestock, their soil and water. So when they converse with the interface, it will augment their context-specific information and tailor the recommendation according to those information, as well as saving and storing those and improving the data over time.
Right, but many of them will have some sensors or cameras or something like that, so would you be able to integrate that data into the workflow?
That will be really helpful, but that will be the next step because we've designed the system. We completed the proof of concept that will be published in a conference soon. So that will be the next step. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mamehgol. Our next presenter is Nikki Barrett from Tenira Institute of Population Research at the University of Waikato, breaking the wall of childbirth education.
Thank you. Pure joy and absolute terror when I first found out I was pregnant with my baby. Pure joy because we actually thought we couldn't have children, and then blessed with our little miracle. And absolute terror because there were 3 things I thought I knew for sure about childbirth. Number 1, my nanny used to tell me, there is no dignity. When you're in labour, you lie naked on a bed with your legs in the air, doctors and nurses coming and going. Number 2, my dad used to tell me, women can't handle pain. Get the drugs. I prepared myself for the fact that I would need an epidural. And number 3, all I'd ever heard and seen was women going to a hospital to give birth. That all changed when I went to this childbirth or antenatal class called Hapu Wānanga. Hapu meaning pregnant and Wānanga workshop. By the way, hands up if you've never heard of an antenatal class before, because you're not alone if you haven't. I didn't. Oh wow, you all have, that's great. Well, in this class, I learnt about natural birthing alternatives, that home birth is a thing, and that my body is designed for labour and birthing. This class transformed me from being absolutely petrified to becoming a strong, confident woman. I ended up having 2 empowering water births that I still rave about 10 years later. Hapu Wānanga is the catalyst for positive birthing experiences. Unfortunately, many women have horrific birthing stories, and often men and support people are excluded entirely. Only 10% of Māori attended Western childbirth classes. Programs like Hapu Wānanga emerged to bridge this gap. And as a result, by blending traditional Māori cultural practices with Western medicine, they have significantly boosted participation. I evaluated feedback from over 1,000 participants with varying ethnicities who valued factors such as the embedded Māori cultural practices, the empathetic facilitators, and the increased life-changing knowledge and skills. As a health professional, a researcher, and most importantly, a mama, I am breaking the wall of childbirth education, advocating that all women should have access to Hapu Wānanga because it's your body, your baby, your birth. Thank you.
Kia ora, Nikki. Any questions for Nikki?
Kia ora, Nikki. The traditional birth attendant phenomenon across the world is something that WHO has picked up on and been able to support. Do you see the hapu wānanga as something that could add to that, or is it something that's already been done? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So based on my experience, I mean, the value I see in hapu wānanga is that many women and men and support people are just never given any choice. They're never explained all of their options. And so that's the value I see in hapu wānanga. And I think that's the value that the World Health Organization are looking at, is actually how are we empowering women and children and whānau to make that happen. So I don't know if it answered your question properly. I'm sorry. Talk about it later.
Any further questions from the jury?
Okay. I was waiting for a man to ask my question.
Kia ora, Nikki. Thank you so much. Our next presenter is Patricia Soh from the Ritter Institute at Massey University, and she's breaking the wall of unbalanced vegan diets.
Vegan diets are increasingly popular, but if unbalanced, can lead to nutrient deficiencies, such as for protein. Protein, and more importantly, its building blocks, the amino acids, are vital for human health. Unfortunately, plant-sourced foods are generally considered lower in protein quality than animal-sourced foods because they contain lower amounts of some amino acids that the body can use efficiently. Therefore, it is not surprising to find that vegans may face a daily challenge of choosing the right types of plant foods to meet their protein requirements. I studied the dietary intake patterns of New Zealand vegans. So let's take a look at 3 examples. First of all, we have Mandy. She's a vegan who enjoys a diet that is high in protein intake and protein quality. But for Sandy and Jerry, they are short in these factors. And even for Jerry, who has a relatively high protein intake in the middle of the day, this does not guarantee protein quality. I want to help individuals like Jerry and Sandy meet their protein requirements. But in order to do that, I need to understand where the nutritional risk lies, and that requires me to study their daily dietary intake. Now, this is just 3 individuals. How can I efficiently study the diets of hundreds of dietary patterns? I use a machine learning technique known as dynamic time warping, which essentially does pairwise comparisons between dietary patterns. Using this approach, we can cluster similar profiles together and efficiently identify the individual who has an optimal protein intake and quality, and that is obviously Mandy right at the top of this heat map. We can also see from the darker green cells that there are many individuals that are facing the problem of low protein intake and low protein quality. So, how can we help individuals like Jerry and Sandy? You guessed it right. By using Mandy's diet as an inspiration, we can look more closely at what she's eating, what works, and from here on model suitable or more appropriate plant-sourced foods that would be complementary to each other in the right proportions to meet the nutritional outcomes of Jerry and Sandy. And this is not just for protein quality. It can be used to assess other nutritional patterns and the diets of humans and other diets of humans as well. Sorry. Every meal is an opportunity for optimal nutrition, which must come first in any diet. Therefore, well thought out food combinations will help us break the wall of unbalanced vegan diets. Thank you.
Kia ora, Patricia. Any questions for Patricia?
Thank you. I was just a bit unclear what the data inputs are into the system. Is it real people's diets? Is it a range of people's activity levels, age, the usual demographic factors?
Yep. So we surveyed 193 food dietary data from New Zealand using a cross-sectional study. And what the vegans did is that they have recorded what they ate at the time of the day for 4 days. So what we can do is that, because diets, even within one individual, can change on a daily basis, right? You could have a wild weekend outside and go to work the next day and have very different diets. So the machine learning technique actually use a data-driven approach to compare the shape of, let's just put it simply, the shape of a person's diet pattern over the day. So like breakfast, lunch, dinner, only for protein intake and protein quality. And so what the algorithm does is that it compares one participant with another participant, and it reiterates through all 193 participants over 4 days to get profiles that are the most similar and profiles that are the most different.
Another quick question? Oh.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on the machine learning technique that uses to cluster these individuals?
Yes. So dynamic time warp was actually used to let the data tell the story. And from there, it elucidates a distance matrix. And with that distance, we can actually use that for clustering. And that one is a SOM, which is a self-organizing map, but I've also tried it on hierarchical clustering as well. So the distance matrix will tell us how close two individuals' diets are to each other. And this is efficient because it helps us to understand people's diet every day, as compared to past research where they have simply segregated meals to breakfast, lunch, dinner, and that creates a certain level of bias.
Thank you, Patricia. The next presenter is Petera Whaiao Hudson from Te Pūtahi Atoi School of Maori Knowledge at Massey University. And the title is Breaking the Wall of Western-Dominated AI.
Kia ora. Kia ora no tātou, ko Petera Hudson tēnei, no te whakatōhea tūturu. Hi, my name is Petera, and I come from the beautiful lands of the whakatōhea in the Bay of Plenty. My whānau and I decided to have a look at the potential of mātauranga me tikanga Māori, or Māori knowledge and Māori practices, to have a look to see whether they will impact the creation, the development of an AI. There was a conversation that I was privy to just before the start of my PhD between my supervisor, Professor Himi Whanga, and his good friend, Rangi Mātāmua. And Himi said to Rangi, "What do you think of this AI?" And Rangi looked at him and said, "Is intelligence the new revolution or evolution? Or is it the new colonializer for Indigenous people?" Now, my whānau and I, from the whakatōhea, use Zoom technology to come together to talk about this issue. We sat and we spoke about how can we create something artificial, but ensuring that it's going to be really great for us. And we sat down and we created the Nukutere model. Now, the Nukutere model is underpinned by kaupapa Māori theory. Now, we collected a whole lot of data through an eclectic array of methodologies. And the Nukutere came about with 21 transformative elements that if we practice those elements within inside a virtual world, then that was going to make us feel really cool and having us have an experience that was good for our cultural well-being. Nukutere then reorganised those elements to create what we called 6 transformative factors. And those are the factors there. Whakamana control, we're in control, Māori. Ngā wero, there are cultural and structural mechanisms in place to ensure transformation. Māoritanga culture needed to be part and parcel of anything within the creation of those. Whanaungatanga, we not only connect with ourselves and our people, but we connect with our ancestors and our Whaiao or spiritualness. Huringa, change. It had to be positive for us as Māori. And finally, tūranga. It had to be positioned by Māori, for Māori, with Māori. So that was our experiment that we found.
Kia ora, Petera. Any questions?
Kia ora. Thank you. I was interested in your final statement around for Māori, by Māori, and the power of your presentation and your idea and the bringing down of the wall lies in the significance of indigeneity, or at least that's what I'm hearing, to the world. Right? So in terms of taking that concept and your model into the international stage, could you talk us through a little bit more just around how the framing of the by Māori, for Māori then moves into more Indigenous-wide?
I think we make a stand that anything is good for Māori is going to be good for anybody and everybody. So if we come with that stand, then we know it's going to be great for Indigenous people, and we know it's also going to be great for non-Indigenous people. We can't say that about things that have been created by non-Indigenous people, especially with AI, the marginalisation that's happening within there, not only for race, but for gender. However, whatever is good for Māori is going to be damn good for everybody else.
Kia ora. How might this model be used to protect misrepresentation for Māori and to avoid commodification of Māori culture?
Inclusion. If any advanced technology intervention was to be created and it was not going to be biased towards somebody, then that somebody needs to be part of that creation. So that's fairly simple, that those who have been marginalised need to be part of that conversation. And for Māori, that is reinforced by the fact that by Māori, with Māori, for Māori.
One more, yeah? Okay.
I have the same question for any form of AI, but can you tell me what Nuku actually does? Like how, what do you throw in, what comes out? What's the process?
The data collected provides us with factors that if they're imbued or enshrined into an algorithm, then the likelihood is that next generation AI is going to be mutually beneficial for Māori.
Okay.
So that's what Nuku does. Almost a, I don't want to say filtration unit, but a aggregating machine.
Mm-hmm. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Petera.
Kia ora no tātou.
The next presenter is Sarah Lockwood from Te Wānanga o Aotearoa, Breaking the Wall of Maternal Equity in Cities, in Crisis. Sorry.
Thank you. Tēnā koe. Imagine this scenario. You're a midwife, delivering babies in the heartland of Ngāti Porou territory on the rugged east coast. Here, 88% of the population are Māori, and you have over 50 wahine on your books each month. While the culture here is rich, poverty is rife. Many of the homes have no power, and you've helped deliver babies in cold, uninsulated homes far too often. Now imagine your region is hit by a severe cyclone. In fact, climate change scientists estimate that 1 in 100-year weather events will now be occurring 17 times per decade. And now you're completely cut off from your birthing whānau. You literally throw on a backpack, find a quad bike and drive for hours through treacherous conditions, road slips, flooding, to try and get to your birthing woman. But for some, you can't reach. Now they're all alone birthing, and the implications are severe. Women are 14 times more likely to die in the aftermath of a climate crisis than men. The United Nations estimates that pregnant women are among the most vulnerable community during a climate crisis, with Indigenous women further directly threatened. And that's because these events act as a health threat multiplier, amplifying existing health inequities to our most at-risk populations. However, despite international studies evidencing climate crises as the direct threat towards achieving global targets for maternal mental and physical health, there is currently no systemic framework that exists addressing maternal inequity and climate crisis response. New Zealand ministers recently addressed the International Commission on Women about this and the disproportionate impact it has on our Māori wahine. And yet, wahine, pregnant women, midwives, they're not even mentioned once in our National Disaster Resilience Framework, the guiding document for crisis response here in Aotearoa. The lack of what the evidence shows us, or the gap between what the evidence shows us and what our lack of policy, action and planning is doing, it's medically unsafe, it's economically unsafe, it's culturally unsafe, it's generationally unsafe. My research, the first of its kind in Aotearoa, uses the voices of pregnant women, their whānau and their midwives to build a comprehensive framework, a practical framework for crisis response practitioners to utilise and implement during future crisis response procedures. A blueprint that responds to urgent calls here in Aotearoa and throughout the Pacific nations. Because that scenario I described at the beginning, that was the reality for our only community midwife on the East Coast during Cyclone Gabrielle. If left unaddressed, maternal inequity has the potential to represent an even bigger threat to global development than the climate crisis itself. Ngā mihi nui.
Kia ora, Sarah. Any questions for Sarah?
Kia ora. Well, as you know, New Zealand has a very, very good lead maternity care system. And all over the world, even in third world countries, traditional methods are also really, really great. So how does this work? How would your work actually fit on this global scale in terms of impact?
Good question. And I think we really need to be mindful about the potential for what we're doing can then be picked up and applied in other communities throughout the world, because what my work suggests is that, and I've done this in other crisis response research around young people in crisis, and with women and midwifery in this maternity space, it's important that it applies to the local people and that the local voices have a voice at the table. The local frameworks are important there. So what would work here in Aotearoa may well work in other Pacific nations as well, but we just need to be mindful when applying further than that, that we're working with the local voices, and then how that fits within a practical framework will be different to Aotearoa, and it will have to be because we've got different local voices there. But yeah, that's my response, yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
We'll just take 30 seconds to, you could come up here. Okay, just take 30 seconds to take the score sheets, Nick. Okay, sorry about that. The next presenter is Shalini Guleria from the Lickens Institute, the University of Auckland, Breaking the Wall of Early Immunity.
Have you ever wondered how deeply connected you are to your mothers? Not just emotionally, but also at a cellular level, even after birth. Imagine carrying millions of your mother's cells inside you,
influencing your health in ways we're just starting to understand. It is well established that during pregnancy, there's an exchange of cells between the mother and the baby through the placenta. And this phenomena is called maternal microchimerism. But this transfer of cells doesn't just stop after pregnancy. It actually continues through breastfeeding, which is a new concept we're just beginning to explore. Breast milk is more than just nutrition. It is a source of vital immune cells and compounds that help build the immunity of the newborn. Among these immune cells are regulatory T cells, or Tregs, which are known to be the peacekeepers of the immune system as they help in reducing inflammation as well as lowering the risk of autoimmune diseases and allergies. From our previous work, we've established that breastfed babies have nearly twice as many Tregs in comparison to formula-fed babies by just 3 weeks of age. Yet, the big question remains, are these Tregs being produced within the baby, or are they being transferred through the mother via breastfeeding? And this is where my groundbreaking research comes into action, where we're trying to investigate how maternal microchimerism through breastfeeding could be a key in establishing a strong immune foundation from birth. By using advanced animal models, human samples, we can now track how these Tregs are being transferred from the breast milk in the newborns. Not only that, we can also see how these Tregs might be changing in function as they integrate into the newborn's organs and blood, influencing their overall immune health. Our work has the potential to revolutionize neonatal care by providing new therapies to ensure that every baby starts their life with a robust immune system. Our discovery also enhances our understanding of early life immunity, paving the way for a healthier future for every child. So let's break down the walls of early immunity to build a stronger foundation for tomorrow. Thank you.
Kia ora, Shalini. Any questions for Shalini?
Kia ora. So, sounds really interesting. It sounds like you've got a fluorescent mouse.
Yes, we do.
Awesome. I've always wanted one. The fluorescent mouse is producing the offspring, or are you transferring the offspring to a fluorescent mouse? That must be what you're doing.
Yes, so the answer is, that this mouse is actually the cells that we're looking at, Tregs, they're the ones that are tagged with the fluorescent marker. So all the cells are left as it is. It's just those Tregs that are glowing. So we're using this fluorescent mouse, or the mother, and then we breastfeed pups that don't have this fluorescent marker. So if Tregs are being transferred to the pups, we can then look into the organs and the blood of the pups and actually tag where this fluorescent marker is and see where these Tregs are localized. Yeah.
Can you elaborate just a little bit more on how this discovery can translate to new therapeutics?
New therapeutics? Yeah, sure. So this is obviously a preliminary study at the moment. Obviously, have to build a lot on it. But Tregs are quite essential. They play, like I said, they're the peacekeepers of the immune system. And when the baby is born, they're like a empty, like a new computer with no antivirus, nothing. So what we can do is, by using this model, we can see those changes that are happening in the Tregs. We can apply this model into a disease model, for instance, for babies, and see how these Tregs are changing, what sort of molecular changes are happening in these Tregs. And if we can target that specific molecule, we can then take that into clinic and actually make medications out of it, which can either be given to the mother, so when they breastfeed, that's gone through the breast milk to the baby, or it's given to the baby through that.
Thank you.
Kia ora, Shalini.
Thank you.
The next presenter is Thomas Gillman from National Centre of Research on Europe, University of Canterbury, breaking the wall of access to sports facilities. Welcome.
Kia ora. What do sports facilities and sustainable development have to do with each other?
much more than we might think. It's not often we consider travelling to watch our favourite team or compete in our favourite sport contribute to sustainable development, but it can. Sport helps sustainable development through, for example, enabling healthy lifestyles, economic growth, social development, pathways out of poverty, and cultural exchange. But not all countries are able to benefit from sport's potential because of the wall created by the limited access to quality sporting facilities. And this is the case for many Pacific Island states, such as Niue, Nauru, and Tuvalu. In Tuvalu, for example, athletes train on the airport runway because there are such limited facilities. However, these large ocean states are excellent training destinations with, you guessed it, excellent access to the water and a beautiful climate. Who wouldn't want to go on a training camp here? So, to break down the wall and build on the advantages of these large ocean states, it is proposed to build a climate-neutral, high-performance training centre in Tuvalu. Why Tuvalu? It's not just because the Tuvaluan athletes need more than just the runway to train on, or that developing sporting facilities is a key part of the Te Kete National Strategy for Sustainable Development, but also that Tuvalu is one of the most vulnerable states to climate change, and so the time to act is now if sustainable development is to be realised. The centre would be a passive build and provide athletes with state-of-the-art training, recovery and video analysis facilities. It would focus on attracting low-impact, high-yield sports athletes and tourists. It would support sustainable development in Tuvalu through enabling a healthy lifestyle, career, professional and economic income opportunities, cultural exchanges, and the opportunity to knowledge share around the impacts of climate change. So, building a high-performance centre can break down the wall of limited access to quality sporting facilities, and at the same time enable the host state to benefit from the transformative potential of sport, while also providing a model that can be replicated in other states. Kia ora koutou.
Thank you, Thomas. Any questions?
Kia ora, Thomas. Thank you for that. It's also a really rugged environment in the Pacific. So how sustainable do you think building a sports facility is, not just on human capacity and maintenance, but just, how do you think it's going to be sustainable long term?
That's a really good question. I think that it will have some challenges around its very long-term capability, but I think that sport can have such a strong impact now and in the medium term that I think it can be built in a way that will have a positive benefit for at least a medium-term amount of time. And if it's built in a way that is passive and climate neutral and integrated into the environment, as maybe it runs out of use and it's broken down, it can have that foresight built in at the start so that maybe it can actually be removed and taken somewhere else and used somewhere else as a centre. So it's not leaving this hulking big institution somewhere that is maybe not feasible anymore. We've all seen big hotels built and then left like a Club Med, and it's this hulking thing. So I think a bit of pre-planning and understanding that hopefully it can have that long-term impact, but it might not be able to. So having a positive medium-term impact and then with the opportunity to move it somewhere else at the end. So it actually has a longer lifespan than just its purpose at that time. But that's a really good question. And it's probably one of the limitations of this model that may not be able to be overcome, but hopefully there could be ways to mitigate it and engage with it positively.
Any further questions?
Sorry, thank you for your presentation. I just, because one of the challenges with these fantastic ideas is just the politics around how you would manage the funding side, the relationships between the local community, government, and the potential funders. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, and that's an excellent question. I think that there would have to be a couple of steps built into the process to ensure that those concerns are addressed. I think one of them would be either using a public-private partnership or a similar model like that to ensure that donors, governments and local stakeholders are all incorporated in the running and maintenance to ensure that local voice is also heavily involved in leading that sort of governance. So maybe a public-private partnership model could work there. But also before building, having enough time to actually do the research and the consultations and the engagements to work out how this would actually add value to that particular area, so that there is a process of ensuring that it does fit and is wanted and could actually be useful. And through that process also understanding maybe whether it's public-private partnership or a similar model, what model would suit best to that context. I think a public-private partnership model would potentially be the first suggestion, but that's not to say that there aren't other suggestions as well, but it would hope to overcome the donor reliance so that it doesn't end up in a sort of funding cycle challenge.
Kia ora, Thomas. Our next and last presenter of the day is Yasas Sri Wickramasinghe from the Human Interface Technology Lab, Breaking the Wall of Loneliness Through Play. Welcome.
This gift, my cousin Ghadim gave this last Christmas. As I stand on this stage, this gift reminds me the shared moments, the experiences, joy we had. But now I'm in New Zealand and Guyana is so far away in Sri Lanka. We have technologies like we can of course use text messaging, we can use video calls, but we feel like there's a glass wall between us. We can see each other, we can hear each other, but we are not really together. Even though we have sophisticated technologies, there's something missing. We feel loneliness. According to the World Health Organization, loneliness has been identified as an epidemic. And did you know that loneliness, severe loneliness, can hurt your health as much as smoking 15 cigarettes a day? Many health aspects are there you need to worry about. So, we were thinking about these technologies, how to break this distance. So, I came up with a game design, augmented reality, hide and seek game. Yes, you heard it right. You can play hide and seek being in remote locations. I'll explain how it works. You take any object that's closer to you. For an example, this gift. You take your mobile phone and take a video recording of it. You scan it. Just like that, Ghadim, who is so far away, he scans his environment, his bedroom, living space, and then I can share a copy of that object digitally over the distance to Ghadim. So he can see it as it's in his environment. Just like that, he gets to see that object. So that's how, ladies and gentlemen, we bridge the gap between these distances using hide and seek game design. And we conducted a user study. 60 users reported very high level of presence, and they really felt like they are together with their loved ones. You know what? Our brain lights up when you are physically at a certain location or you just visualize it. So we take that phenomena into our game design and we make it to yourself and we bridge the gap between that concept. So I'm so excited and I'm super ambitious to push this forward and bridge the gap between loneliness over distances. And finally, as humans, we heal the most when we are at safer spaces. So our game design helps you to create safe spaces for each others, and that's how, ladies and gentlemen, we break the wall of loneliness through play. Thank you.
Kia ora, Yasas. Any questions for Yasas?
Cool. So my question is about how the technology works. So when the room is being scanned where you will be hiding the object, does the person need to show the thing, what is openable, what is movable, or it will learn it by itself?
Wow, that's a great question. That was the biggest challenge we had to tackle. So the idea is it's up to the player. So he decides what to expose, what to not. But we were pretty creative when it comes to our game design. So we didn't want to just recreate the traditional hide and seek game. So we didn't apply physics to these 3D models. So we did a comparative study, and because of this novelty and the magic behind this game, we let users to even push into the maybe hard objects, that part of the game. So we made it special like that, and we actually tracked users' gaze data using Tobii Eye Tracker, and also we measured their spatial decision making. So that even reveals that our main challenge was to bridge the gap between distances, but as a side effect, this game unveiled some novel interactive game mechanics out of it. So we decided to keep it as it is.
Thank you.
I'm just curious because people already play together, gamers game with people who are at remote sites. What do you think is the difference here that tackles loneliness? Is it the fact that you walk through somebody's home? Or what creates this better closeness that if I'm gaming with somebody elsewhere?
Yes, that comes around the place attachment theory. So our memories with loved ones are not just with that person, but also the environment we use to make those memories. So how you connect to that space? We have Zoom, we have other technologies, SMS or video calls, but there's a boundary between us and that person. You can't really connect to that place. So you put Zoom, you put Pokemon Go, the game very famous, and you put them together, and that's our game. So that's how we bridge the gap.
Kia ora, Yasas.
Thank you very much.
And that was the last presentation, and what a fantastic way to finish the presentations. Please join me in thanking all our presenters. We'll now have a very short break, 5 minutes, if that's possible. And then we have a couple of videos and a talk. And in the meantime, we'll ask a jury to retire and try and find out who should win this amazing opportunity. This is going to be a very, very hard task. So good luck with that. We start back here at 3:45. So that's when the award ceremony starts. But just take 5 minutes now to go and stretch your legs and be back here in 5 minutes.
Kia ora koutou katoa. Ko Tara Satinan toko ingoa, ko au te tumu tuhonu hapori whanui. I'm Tara Satinand and I'm Director of External Engagement here at the Royal Society Te Aparangi. I'm here to introduce Gurguli Toldi. So Dr. Toldi is a senior lecturer in neonatology who works at the Liggins Institute in Auckland with our new president, Professor Dame Jane Harding. He's an expert on immunology, neonatology, autoimmunity, obstetrics and gynecology. He studies the way that the immune response develops at the earliest stages of life, including how some autoimmune disorders develop. This includes research to help pregnant women and babies who experience complications due to their immune systems. He's a consultant at Starship's Neonatal Intensive Care Unit. Some of his research has included coming up with novel methods based on flow cytometry. He's also the supervisor of Shalini, who just presented before. Gurguli Toldi is an alumnus of the Global Young Academy and he's currently co-chair of the Society's Early Career Researcher Forum Committee, which he's going to talk to you about now. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for that introduction and thank you for the opportunity to tell you a little bit about the Royal Society Te Aparangi's Early Career Researchers Forum, or ECR Forum for short. But first of all, I'd like to congratulate all amazing presenters today, and thank you so much for sharing your exciting ideas and research. It was great to hear all those talks and all those brilliant ideas. So in preparation for today's talk, I did a bit of digging in the archives and found this photograph from 2013 from the Berlin edition of the Falling Walls event. And I have to say it was one of the most exciting days in my professional career. So I'm really, really jealous of whoever is going to represent Aotearoa, New Zealand in Berlin in just a couple of months' time. I'm less jealous of the jury, who I'm sure are having a really difficult time right now deciding that. So fingers crossed, everyone. So back to the ECR Forum. So essentially this is the Royal Society's body for early career researchers. Similar bodies, similar organizations have been established throughout the world. The first one is actually from Germany, the Junge Academy, which was founded in 2001. The New Zealand equivalent was launched officially in March 2016. And basically, it represents the national voice of New Zealand's ECR community and celebrates the achievements and contributions. As I mentioned, it operates under the auspices of RSTA, and it acts as a national entity to represent and provide the knowledge, expertise, and perspectives of New Zealand's ECRs to the society and its stakeholders, as well as to the broader public. Importantly, it represents all fields and disciplines of research and science. The definition of an ECR is a pretty loose one. And what we normally mean is that a researcher within the first 10 years of completing the highest research qualification, which is normally a PhD or a similar degree, and someone who can demonstrate research independence as per the criteria for professional membership of the Royal Society Te Aparangi. And like I said, this is a loose definition, so we take into account lots of different things like parental or other forms of leave that can be added onto that 10-year time limit. The activities of the ECR Forum are mostly steered by a committee, which consists of somewhere between 10 to 16 members, and there are 3 co-chairs of the committee. The members have normally a 3-year term, and we pay great attention to representativeness regarding gender, ethnicity, geographic location, occupational sector, and disciplinary affiliation. We have subcommittees in the committee addressing the goals of the forum, and these subcommittees are called People, Voice, and Knowledge. The first one deals with advocacy mostly for ECRs, including equity issues. The voice, again, is for advocacy, and knowledge is empowerment of ECRs, as well as disseminating that knowledge to the general public as well, to the broader society. The flagship event of the ECR Forum is the conference He Pitomata, which was organized last year in 2023 for the second time over 2 days with hundreds and hundreds of ECR participants and representatives of various stakeholder bodies, including Minister Farrell, then Minister of Science. We also organize webinars for ECRs on a regular basis. These are the 2 that we organized this year, and there will be a 3rd coming up discussing data sovereignty. And we also have different position papers and statements that you can access through the Royal Society's website. So I would first of all encourage you to join the Royal Society as a professional member. There is a specific membership category for ECRs, so please have a look at the website to find out more about that. And please also connect with us with the ECR forum. We have a mailing list that you can subscribe to. We have an email address, which is rsnzecrforum@gmail.com. And we're also present on social media. And if you'd like to do more, please consider applying for committee membership. We have rolling vacancies, and if you're interested, please get in touch with us and we can share more information about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Gurguli. Are there any questions? We're not planning Hippie Taumata in the coming year, but sorry.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so there will definitely be one. Likely not in 2025. At the moment, we are aiming for early 2026, mostly because of the changes the sector is going through at the moment. We'll be in a much better position, leaving it a little bit later. But yeah, the idea is that we organize one every couple of years going forward.
Any other questions?
If not, feel free to find me during the networking session after the prize giving. Thank you again.
Thank you, Gurguli. I'd like to tautoko everything that Gurguli said, and please do look up on our website and become a member. Now, next I'm going to introduce Claire Kaplan from our Science Media Centre. Claire has a background in journalism. She actually won the Best Junior News Journalist in 2018 at the New Zealand Community Newspaper Association Awards for her work living in paradise in Te Anau, Southland, and working on the local paper there. Before that, she worked in Boston in the USA, and she studied in Spain. She's going to tell us about how the Science Media Centre supports sharing of science and research for the benefit of all. Claire.
Kia ora. Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Claire Kaplan toko ingoa. Yeah, my name's Claire. I'm a media advisor at the Science Media Centre. I've been here for about 4.5 years. And I'm here today just to talk about who we are. Maybe you've heard about us or worked with us before. Maybe we're entirely new to you. And also give you guys some very practical tips if you're interested in applying these excellent science communication skills that you've worked on for your pitches into media engagement, because actually these skills are very transferable to the quick and snappy nature of news. So we want to give you some very practical tips along with ways you might hear from us in the future. But first off, what is the Science Media Centre? We're an independent resource to help connect journalists with researchers like yourselves to support quality evidence-based coverage in the media. And we do that by connecting reporters to researchers and up-to-date research, providing that context for late-breaking news and topical issues. And we work with experts from across the New Zealand science sector and internationally. We're fully funded through MB and maintain editorial independence. We're a team of 5 full-time staff based right here at Royal Society Te Aparangi, just 2 floors up. And we've been around for 15 years, and we were established 15 years ago in response to massive changes in the traditional model of how journalism worked. Not just that were happening here in Aotearoa, but around the world. So for those of you who might have been consuming news 20 years ago, the traditional way would have been maybe you wake up, get the morning paper, read the headlines, go to work, go to school, tune into the radio about midday, get the headlines, go back to your daily life, and then maybe while you're cooking dinner, turn on the TV. And now, of course, 20 years later, we're all consuming news through the little computers we have in our pocket. These changes has meant a total change to how newsrooms generate revenue and their resourcing. So the traditional model was a really solid way of generating revenue, but now we have online platforms that are more than happy to share news content and get that revenue without actually producing news themselves. And the maybe money we get from classified, for example, would be going to other sources as well. And these massive drops in revenue to newsrooms has meant cut after cut after cut to newsrooms. and one of those first cuts on the chopping block would have been specialist reporters like science journalists, people who knew how to read a science paper, how to spot red flags, had a big book of contacts from across the science sector on who to contact to talk about the latest updates, controversies, discussions, and so on and so forth. And instead, with every cut to the newsroom, we see the shift to generalist reporting. So now if you get a hurried call from a reporter, it may well be that they've only been 6 months in the newsroom and previously was covering a traffic accident and court reporting, and just at the last minute their editor has asked them to cover this interesting science paper that's come out, and they've talked to you as the lead author. So basically newsrooms and journalists are being asked to do more with a lot less, and what we hear from journalists, this is from our 2018 evaluation survey, is that journalists are finding it increasingly hard to do science-related stories. That push for the snappy and quick often doesn't leave them time to do the research needed for science stories. Or that science can get a bit neglected in the newsroom due to the often esoteric nature of the content, or that they find it very frustrating with a hard news story when you can't contact the person you need. So here at the Science Media Center, we try and smooth that pathway between researchers and media so they can get evidence-based voices like from yourselves. We do that could be a couple of ways. For example, late-breaking news from a natural hazard where journalists need to talk to an expert just to get some basic context about what's going on. Finding new angles to long-burning issues such as climate change. And who knows, maybe your niche field could be making global headlines the next day. Just remember 5 years ago, the term epidemiology was not a household term, and now it is. So just in summary again, we're here to provide context and evidence base to inform media reporting and enable that rapid response to public concerns, but also focus attention on emerging issues within fields that maybe haven't made it to the mainstream yet. We're here to reflect scientific consensus and improve accessibility of science to the public. And what we've learned in the last 15 years or so is that researchers like yourselves can have a real impact on how media cover a topic when they are accessible, timely, easy to understand, and willing to adapt. So hopefully I've piqued your interest in media engagement. Maybe you have engaged with the media before, or maybe you have some stereotypes in your head, or maybe some colleagues have had some experiences. Happy to have a discussion afterwards about your interest or experiences working with the media, but here are some really practical tips we think are really helpful to make the most of those opportunities to work with the media when they come about. And if there's one tip I would like you to take away from this presentation is to plan ahead. Now imagine this scenario. You're a research team, you're working on this project for a couple of years, and all of a sudden your research hits the news because there's an international headline. Journalist calls you up, says, oh, I heard you're researching this topic and there's been some international news, can I talk to you? And you're not sure if you're the spokesperson you should be speaking to, or if it's your supervisor or colleague, and you say, oh, let me contact them. And then maybe you hear back from them a couple days later, and then you're not sure about your main points. And then by the time you got everything confirmed, it's a week later, you call back the journalist and said, well, that news cycle is lost. Or your paper is out, maybe you think it's newsworthy, but then you think about media engagement 2 months after publication. In both of these scenarios, they're not the most proactive ways to engage with media. The alternative would be at the very start of your research project, you think who's going to be our point person, who's going to be our alternate, who's going to be taking photos, who's going to be liaising with the comms person. When we're going to do a really cool field work, do we want to bring about a journalist to come along and take some cool photos and cover our cool field research? When we're having a bit of a lull and we're crunching the data, do we want to write a piece in the conversation, for example, talking about some wider context? And then once we hear our paper gets accepted, then we start contacting some journalists saying, hey, would you be interested in covering this paper the day it's published? And it's important to adapt to the news cycle. This is a rough diagram of how a news cycle happens. And on this axis, the time from origination can be a couple of hours if we're talking about natural hazard, to a couple of years if we're talking about COVID. But effectively, the breaking news happens, and newsrooms are going to start dedicating resources so journalists can start asking those basic questions of who, what, when, where, and why. And at some point, that coverage is going to get saturated and slowly evolve into more thoughtful discourse and niche and opinion-driven discussion. And we understand that as researchers, perhaps this might be more of your comfort zone when you've had more time to think about the data and reflect and talk to colleagues. But at the Science Media Center, we really encourage you to be available and ready to comment on whatever context is available here, because this is where you and your evidence-based perspective will make the most impact and reach the widest audience. Some news hooks when you're trying to figure out whether or not your research might be newsworthy for general audiences. Is it happening now? Is it a new discovery or world first that's happening here in Aotearoa? Is it timely or relevant? Is there a political hot issue, emotion, human interest? Some of these news hooks are really helpful in what journalists will probably internally be thinking about when you pitch them a story and they're deciding whether or not they want to cover it. The second tip I have is to gather as you go. Take photos, take video, take audio, especially when you're doing the cool stuff out in the field or even something happening in the lab. News today is not just a text experience, it's a multimedia experience. And like I said before, newsrooms do not have a lot of resources to go out, send a producer to go get some B-roll or take photos. So if you come to a journalist and say, hey, I have a cool story, here's some cool photos, I'm available to talk, that might easily put your story much more at the top compared to the 10 other stories that are competing for their attention to have that full picture. And even if not, you have some cool memories of your research along the way. Third tip is to share the load. Media engagement should not fall on just one person's shoulders. So again, know who your main media contact is, your alternate. Assign someone else, the social media savvy person, to take those photos and videos. Who's going to liaise with your comms person? Do you know who your comms person is? If not, say hello to them. Share the load. Another tip is to reuse and repurpose. You shouldn't have to start from scratch every time you do any sort of media engagement. We really encourage a nested approach. So for example, if you're publishing in a journal that requires a lay summary, take those sentences from the lay summary, maybe make them a bit more conversational, and send them as quotes to your press officer to turn as quotes into a press release. Or alternatively, if you're blogging about your research, you can take those as reminders and examples from your research from last year, and then you can use that as interview prep. It might seem obvious, but we really encourage you to explain your research using clear and simple language. Generally, it's preferable when you're talking about your research to take a conversational approach. Imagine explaining your research to an interested friend or family member. And spring and summer is coming up, family barbecues, events. Use that as a testing ground to see whether people respond to your research in terms of, do I have my explanation right? Am I using too much jargon? Are their eyes kind of glazing over? This is a great testing ground to see whether or not you're using too much jargon, or you need to take a step back, or maybe get more of a bird's eye view on your research. Paint a picture and using concrete or relatable examples. So if there's something in your research that's really heavy, can you compare it to the weight of a car? Or if there's something in your research that's really long, can you compare it to the length of a rugby field, for example? No, what is going on there? Painting a picture can be really helpful for general audiences just learning about your field of research for the first time. So in summary, what journalists want is they want timely access to expertise, especially with late-breaking news. Being able to provide whatever knowledge or data you're aware of, any additional context, is really helpful. And for them, an expert is someone simply who knows more than they do about the topic. They want a clear explanation of impacts, and that's relevant to their audience. So a little bit more about us and how you might be hearing from us in the future. We kind of have three main work streams on how we help link researchers to yourselves to journalists and vice versa. The first is expert reactions. When research comes out that we think is going to be newsworthy, we will go to experts in the field and say, hey, do you mind writing 100 or 200 words of comment in response to this paper or this late breaking news? And we will send those written comments to our list of journalists as a quote from you. And this can serve a couple of functions. One, if we have 4 or 5 comments from different experts, it can kind of serve as a quick sense of, is there consensus on this topic or not? If a journalist just finds a really great quote that they can copy and put in their news cycle or news article, that's an evidence-based perspective they can easily put in there. Or perhaps an expert has highlighted something that wasn't immediately evident to them, and then they want to follow up for a different story for a different news cycle. And in terms of expert reactions, we cover a wide range of topics. So of course, physics, biology, chemistry, but really anything with an evidence base. So social sciences, health, law, business, really wide range of topics. Anything in that realm is we're game for. Second stream is that we help promote upcoming studies that we think are going to be of interest to New Zealand journalists. And we do this through a platform called the Science Media Exchange, or SciMeX, which we share with the Australian Science Media Centre. So there's a password-protected site where only registered journalists can access embargoed content, and this will make it available, so the PDF, author contact details, and any media releases and so forth. And we sum this up in a twice-weekly email we send out to journalists with our picks of the week. And then finally, media queries. Any journalist can call us up saying, hey, I'm looking to talk to an expert for this science-based story. Do you have any suggestions? And really anything is game. Of course, we usually deal with more serious topics like infectious disease outbreaks, but also even lighter fare for talk radio. For example, how do you give CPR to a giraffe? We have answered that query. Apart from those three main streams, we do, of course, offer training and resources. So we have our desk guide for scientists, which offer even more tips and tricks. There's some copies there. We also offer a separate desk guide for journalists, as well as offering workshops for journalists on how to spot bad science. We have additional resources online, including some tutorial videos. And we have our flagship 2-day Savvy workshop where we go into these issues way more in depth and give researchers a lot more practice time in front of a camera with the lights to get over those nerves of like, oh my gosh, I'm in front of a camera, and give you lots of practice time to get over those nerves and hone your pitch, along with newsroom tours and meeting journalists to learn more about their work. We also offer this workshop for Māori researchers that's fees-free for researchers to discuss their kaupapa. And we also, this year, we were invited to do a Science Media Savvy for Pacific researchers at the University of Auckland's Whale Pacifica. We have a condensed version of this called Savvy Express, so you might see this at conferences where each researcher will get a one-on-one, a 15-minute espresso version of our Savvy training, where again, you're in front of a camera, you get that training, and you get some tips that you can take away with you. If you're keen to work with an illustrator to help illustrate your science, we have a guide on how to work with illustrators. So if you'd like a copy, feel free to get in touch. We also have an online directory of illustrators who are keen to work with researchers like yourselves. And finally, we have a once-a-week newsletter deadline that's kind of a nice summary of all the science news in Aotearoa that week. So here's the team. Our director is Daisha Herbulak. My name is Claire Kaplan, and I'm joined by my media advisors, Daniel Walker, Katrin O'Donnell, and Tenuka Alanko. I'm presenting us all just as a friendly hello, and also you might hear from any of us in the future. Thank you so much for your time, and best of luck to all of you. Happy to take any questions after this presentation, and yeah, namihi kia koutou.
Kia ora. Are there any questions for Claire now? No. Okay, so thank you. We're now going to watch a video. This is actually a video about Euraccess, and we have Nishant Shandilia here today. He leads Euraccess for Australia and New Zealand. This is an organisation which facilitates scientific collaboration between Europe and the rest of the world. So this is a very important organisation for you to know about, and so this is just a brief video to talk about their work. Thank you.
In the heart of a truly open European research area, the fundamental principle of the free movement of people and ideas propels scientific progress. Euraccess is built on this principle. Launched 2 decades ago, Euraccess has grown into an all-in-one networking platform, empowering researchers to explore new horizons, move to other countries, and advance their careers. With opportunities to work in top labs, universities, and innovative companies, the aim is for researchers to reach their full potential and become the best in their field. This journey began in 2001 when the Council endorsed a portal to support the creation of an open and attractive labour market for researchers. In 2004, the European Commission launched the European Researchers Mobility Portal, later rebranded as Euraccess Jobs, offering tailored information on jobs and funding. In 2008, the ERA More network became Euraccess Services. European Charter and Code turned into Euraccess Rights, and ERA Link became Euraccess Links, then called Euraccess Worldwide in 2013. The success of the rebranding accelerated the expansion of Euraccess, both in size and scope. The network now spans 43 European and neighbouring countries, along with 9 worldwide representations, reaching as far as Australia and New Zealand. On its 20th anniversary in 2024, Euraccess counts more than 100,000 registered researchers. Whether you're looking to change jobs, move to another country, broaden your professional network, or need help with funding, Euraccess has all the information, covering all stages from early career to retirement. With over 10,000 job offers available daily, its recruitment portal serves as a valuable tool for connecting organizations and research professionals. Adapting continually to user needs, Euraccess provides guidance on career development and non-academic careers.
And one of the major things, if you want to have good researchers, if you want to have successful research at the end of the day, it's their mobility, knowing the opportunities which are existing.
Another major milestone includes the launch of the Science for Refugees initiative in 2015 to support researchers in need. And it's not just individuals who benefit from the network services.
We aim to give the research profession a common identity across Europe in a transparent, well-defined and cross-sectoral way, which will help both employers and individual researchers.
Thanks to Euraccess, research organizations have access to the highest level of expertise. The events organized by the network further underscore its success. Since 2013, Euraccess Worldwide has organized more than 1,200 events and meetings with over 180,000 participants. Reaching out to aspiring scientists, the Researchers in Motion Roadshow has visited 29 European cities in 22 countries, offering advice on jobs, CVs, and employment rights. The continuous growth of Euraccess and its services have helped to push the boundaries of knowledge and contribute to the advancement of science, strengthening Europe's position in tackling societal challenges. Euraccess, driving change, shaping tomorrow's research, science, and innovation.
I do encourage you to look on the website and see what opportunities are available to you for potential international collaborations, and also talk to Nishan, introduce yourself to him in the break. Next we have a video about the Marsden Fund. It's an important year because we're celebrating 30 years since the Marsden Fund was first established. The aim was to enhance the quality of research in New Zealand and to advance knowledge, not only here but globally. When we look back over 30 years, we can see it's really achieved this aim. One of the measures of the quality of research is that New Zealand researchers are collaborating with their counterparts internationally. They're well respected and highly cited. And despite our geographical isolation due to organisations like the German Embassy and Euraccess, New Zealand researchers are collaborating. So this video is about celebrating the achievements of scientists supported by the Marsden Fund over 30 years. And it also shows that even though this fund is meant to support curiosity-driven research, and that's its primary aim, actually there have been real benefits in terms of impact for New Zealanders, whether it's economic or health or environment or in other ways. So please watch.
I was very keen to come tonight. I wouldn't have missed this for anything. You might be interested in what was said at the time the fund was launched. This is what I said. The government has established this fund with two prime objectives in mind: to enhance the underpinning of our scientific knowledge base and to broaden and deepen our research skill base. And it remains the best thing I've ever done in public life and been associated with. So I'm here as an enthusiast. And
First of all, thank you, Simon. A heartfelt thanks on behalf of most people here, I think, for having the foresight and the tenacity to invent the fund. We in New Zealand, I think, have reaped enormous rewards. But I think what you said about first-class minds with a hunch is really captures the essence of the fund. And the fund has really allowed those people to stay in New Zealand and nurture those hunches. So I think we're doing pretty well since we're celebrating.
You know, often we think of Marsden as wanting to exemplify kind of the best and boldest ideas, and has led to either expected or unexpected outcomes, but characterises what the Marsden Fund is about and what it can achieve.
There's so many examples we can think of where actually some of the ideas that generated in Marsden have led to benefits to New Zealand, especially in the economic area. Marsden is a really important part of generating those ideas that will be tomorrow's new products and solutions.
So I think the multiplier effect of some of these grants defy measurement. The social capital, the cultural capital of these projects. So that's an amazing, wonderful, distinctive piece of research that uniquely speaks to who we are as a nation. People are propelled by wanting to make a difference, to make this world a better place. And I think that is what holds it all together, that the ideas are in service of a better world.
I'm so excited now that I have many ministerial colleagues who say, "You're so lucky, Judith." I say, why? Well, you've got science. But it's a great area. Thank you so much. You make my work so exciting, and I get very excited every day just to come and see what else is going on. So thank you very much.
Great. Another thing that we are very lucky to be involved in is support for the Prime Minister's Science Prizes. So these were originally established to celebrate the achievements of our best researchers and to raise public understanding of their work and to inspire others to follow in their footsteps. Every year we've been awarding 5 different prizes: an overall prize for science, a prize for an emerging researcher, a prize for a science communicator, a prize for a future scientist, and a science teacher, thank you very much. And this year we'll be offering 2 new prizes for space. So one of them is for a professional working in the aeronautics or space sector, and the other one is for a student who's on their way to work in that sector. So please do look on our website. Applications are open until 30th of September. There's an emerging scientist category, and last year we awarded some incredible prizes. There were 5 of them, but we've selected 3 for you to watch right now.
My name is Samuel Mayer. I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Auckland and a Rutherford Discovery Fellow. I'm also a faculty member at the Child Studies Center at Yale University in the States. In my research, we study the psychology of music, why it is that humans make music and listen to music and are so motivated to participate in music. So we have 2 main tools that we use in the lab. One comes from traditional, sort of old-fashioned psychology research. We show them stimuli they've never seen before, and we measure their responses to them. So we know from experiments in the lab that when infants hear music that's intended to be soothing, it has reliable psychophysiological effects on them. It reduces their heart rate and calms them. What we don't really know yet very well is whether these sorts of immediate effects have cumulative effects. So that's one of the things that we're studying by doing randomized trials in the home. And we also use methods of citizen science, where we recruit people on the internet to play games, experiments that are basically disguised as games. As psychologists, we're really interested in phenomena that happen across our whole species, not just the people who happen to be able to come to your lab. So citizen science has made it much more feasible for psychologists to study humans in general, and I think that's really exciting. What we find when we study humans across many different societies is that there's always something there that prepares them to hear music and understand music and motivates them to produce music in the first place. It's kind of weird that we do this thing. It's very odd that everybody has on their person a device that plays music and stores thousands and thousands of songs. That's weird. It's not exactly keeping us alive. It's not exactly keeping us well fed, but we all do it. So one of the things that I think is exciting about being a psychologist and working on this topic is that we get to dig into these everyday behaviors and try to figure out why it is that we are the way we are.
Kia ora, my name is Parry Guilford. I'm a cancer genetic researcher from the University of Otago. This project was one which started off in about 1994 when a large whānau from the Bay of Plenty realised that their very high rate of stomach cancer in their family was caused by a gene and not by a curse.
I'm Maybelle McLeod. I was a nurse in Nelson. My cousin had died. She was my age at the time. She was 28, and I came back and just thought something wasn't right.
They could see in their whānau that there was something happening that they didn't have the expertise themselves to fully understand. So that's when they contacted Parry Guilford from the University of Otago.
It was quite a long process. We were interviewed several times. They didn't really like the look of me. I was a bit too young. Fortunately, after numerous cups of tea, we managed to kind of reach a consensus and really built a relationship which was purely, in my view, based on trust.
It was over 100 people volunteered for this. Within maybe a year and a half, it was discovered.
So by using linkage analysis followed by DNA sequencing, we're able to show that a gene called CDH1 was the cause of cancer in this family. People who have a mutation in the CDH1 gene are recommended to have a total gastrectomy, which means to have their entire stomach removed.
The gastrectomy is it's a big operation and it's a difficult operation for patients. However, it is the only chance of cure or prevention of getting stomach cancer.
I bring to this project the experience of being someone with the CDH1 gene who has had a gastrectomy 13 years ago, and at that time there was barely any information out there about how to best support Māori whānau going through this process. And so I've come down the middle to kind of join those two sides together a little bit more and incorporate Māori knowledge, te reo, tikanga, to provide better services and care.
I think what we do isn't rocket science in Māoridom. We do what we do like we would do it on a marae. We cater for the whole whānau, and so the clinical teams have been really great about embracing how we like to work, and so in that sense it's been really great.
We estimate that in New Zealand there are about 400 to 450 people whose lives have been saved by this mutation. In Europe and the US together, probably around about 27,000 people will have had their lives saved in the next few years. So it's a story which has gone from one small whānau Māori just outside Tauranga to a global story affecting thousands and thousands of people, and it's been for me an utter privilege to be part of this for most of my working life.
People think it's unfortunate that you get the gene, but today I heard, no, it's not unfortunate. It's fortunate because we know, and we know how to deal with it.
Kia ora, ko Ben Kennedy tōku ingoa. I'm Ben. I am a professor at the University of Canterbury, and my research group works on anything and everything volcano. I started out science communicating with kids. That was pretty natural for me. Kids think volcanoes are fun. Kids love fart noises, experiments that explode. By talking to the kids and getting the kids excited about science and trusting scientists, you can really get across how much we just genuinely trying to help. And I think kids can see that. I guess I kind of gradually was forced to grow up a bit. I love Whakaari. I worked there for 10 years. I thought it was a beautiful, exciting volcano. And, I was getting phone calls from the BBC to communicate the science. At the beginning, I knew there'd been an eruption. I knew people had died, but I didn't know anyone that I knew was involved. And then as I found out more about the situation, it got harder, and I actually took a step back and stopped communicating for a few months about it, and then kind of slowly processed it and thought a bit more carefully about it, and then I kind of felt ready again. Volcanoes mean a lot to different people. Some people, they're the way they make their living. Some people, they're a big source of worry. Some people, view the volcanoes as their ancestors. So I guess I realized I had to listen to people more, and I guess just be a bit more thoughtful, a bit slower and more considerate of people's emotions and feelings around volcanoes. I still find it super rewarding to talk to kids, and especially when you go out to a school and you do an explosion and the kids are all like, whoa! Those kind of emotions that you receive from kids are, magic.
Okay, there's one more video. We'd like to introduce you to the Science Teaching Leadership Program. Now, I know that none of you are science teachers, but the beauty of our program is it's a professional development program for teachers. It's helping them to take the science curriculum and introduce it to students in the classroom by collaborating outside of the classroom. So making links with experts in their communities and the parent group, and also local science sector organisations. So over the years, our program has been able to forge links with organisations like universities and CRIs who have hosted science teachers. The teachers have been and spent 6 months working alongside scientists, really building close links with those organisations, and then going back to the school and making sure that kids can go and visit and that kids can be inspired by real working scientists and those jobs that are out there for them. So please do consider whether you or your organisation could act as a host for a science teacher. We've got a new crop just coming through. They are amazing teachers. They're the best of the best, and that's the pipeline of future scientists and researchers for New Zealand. So it is a really rewarding experience for the hosts just as much as for the science teachers and the students, and there's a video to show you.
My name's Vicky Moffat. I am a teacher at Titirangi Primary School. I'm currently in phase 1 of the program. I've had the privilege of being based at Manaki Whenua on the day-to-day, looking at the microbiology of fungi and bacteria, and then later on I'm going to be out in the field looking at the morphology of fungi and trying to marry those two together.
My experience as a host has been fantastic. It gives us a chance to do some fun stuff that we wouldn't normally do, like this probiotic project that we're working on. I think it's really interesting. In my day-to-day work, I wouldn't really get a chance to do this, but having Vicky come, she can do the bulk of the work. I'm just there to kind of guide her through, help her design experiments, look at results, that kind of thing. I think it's really important that teachers and scientists can work together because, ultimately, all scientists were school kids at one point, and for a lot of us, that's where our love of science began.
I think the teachers that go back after having had such an experience are more motivated in their teaching, and they have a whole lot of new examples to talk to the students about that are real science, real research that they were involved in. And also, I think helping students demystifying the science and science institutions, because we're not ivory towers. The people who work here are just normal people. They just happen to have skills in science and are really interested in that area. It's all gain to us, and I would suspect it is for any other organisation that has a perspective on outreach for their own science, and therefore having a teacher present just only adds to that.
The encouragement I give to other organisations if they're considering taking on a host is just go for it. It's so rewarding. Don't stress if you don't have a firm plan about what your teacher can do. It's good to meet with them and see what their aspirations are and what their interests are, and develop a plan alongside them. Involve as many people in your organisation as possible so that your teacher gets a chance to experience a diversity of roles within your organisation.
The personal development and the professional development, as well as the scientific development, has been far greater than I ever imagined. and also the relationships that I've built here at Manaaki Whenua and with the colleagues on the program mean that I've got a bank of resources that I can call on when I get back to school and utilise all those experiences as well.
Cool. I should have also said, if you know of science teachers in your network, please do encourage them to apply for the program. It's all the way through from primary school to secondary school, or if you're considering becoming a science teacher in future, also apply for this. Now we've got a break. There's still a little bit of sun outside. You could go outside and stretch your legs and enjoy that, or have another cup of tea or coffee. I believe we're coming back at 3:45. So to announce the winners, which is the exciting bit, which of course you've all been waiting for. So thanks everybody for your patience, and we'll see you again soon.
Welcome back, everybody. I think we are ready to proceed to the award ceremony, but first I will just ask Nishan Chandelier to come up and say a few words. Nishan is a regional coordinator for Euraccess Australia and New Zealand, and he'll talk a little extra talk about an extra prize that Euraccess is able to provide. So please come on. You okay with the microphone?
I think I have one.
Oh, you have.
Yes. Thank you, Trolls. Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here in Wellington. We have been supporting the Falling Walls Lab in New Zealand since 2020, but it's my first time that I've been able to come in person. I'm based in Sydney. That's where the travel comes into being. But just to give you an idea, I'm Nishan Chandelier. I'm the regional coordinator for Euraccess Australia and New Zealand. You might have seen the video earlier. So Euraccess is an initiative of the European Commission that addresses barriers to the mobility of researchers and seeks to enhance scientific collaboration between Europe and the rest of the world. So when I say rest of the world, I'm responsible just for Australia and New Zealand. There are Euraccess in the 43 European research area places, and then there are 9 Euraccess across the globe. And of course, we have almost 600 plus Euraccess support centers. Very briefly, in terms of understanding what the support centers does, is it provides free of charge help to researchers who are trying to find practical information about a certain member state if they are trying to move to a certain member state or an associated country or the like. Right? Now, the thing with Falling Walls Lab and why it makes a lot of sense for us to get involved is because falling walls and what our principle is breaking barriers, right? So it converges in that place. And in the context of research and innovation, it's very timely because we were responsible for organizing the Horizon Europe launch in Australia and New Zealand. Unfortunately, we have colleagues from MB. Daiana is here. We are very happy that now New Zealand is associated to Horizon Europe. For those who are not aware of Horizon Europe, it's the largest research and innovation framework program in the world. So of course, as researchers, it should be very much high on your priority to learn more about what Horizon Europe has to offer. We are actually going to announce a roadshow later today, I believe. So there will be 4 city roadshows on Horizon Europe, specifically in October. So the one in Wellington is going to be on 21st of October. So if you are very keen on understanding what are the opportunities for New Zealanders in terms of Horizon Europe, do have an eye out on these announcements. It has a budget of around 95.5 billion euros, so quite sizable in that regard, right? Now, coming back to Falling Walls, for us, it's a pleasure to be associated with the Falling Walls Lab, and as a gesture of our appreciation for all your hard work, we have always been providing a Euraccess prize. And previously, it used to be a travel ticket, but now your travel tickets are sorted by other ways. So what we provide is a science communication training that is provided by experts who used to be involved with Falling Walls in Berlin. And the idea is to fine-tune whatever is necessary. You guys are already presenting amazingly. We'll just fine-tune a little bit so that you are well representing New Zealand in Berlin. We do the same exercise for Australia as well. But yes, thank you very much for being actively participative in this program. And I'm sure that you will be representing New Zealand very well in the Berlin finale. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you for coming.
Kia ora, Nishan. Thank you so much for that. It's now my great honor to call the chair of the jury, Phil Lester, up to let you all know who they have decided, starting with number 3 down to the first place. Over to you, Phil.
I have all the power. Do I have to stand in the box? So thank you all for coming along today, and thank you for the presenters. Congratulations to everybody. The standards were really high this year. I think it was amongst the highest that us judging panels that have been involved in it for several years have experienced. And so you made our job particularly hard, right? So we would have loved to have been in a position to give out many more prizes than what we did, were able to end up with. I have the power, or do you want to announce?
No, you announce. Number 3.
So number 3 is Sarah Lockwood. Sarah gave a very passionate and very powerful delivery. The world is unfortunately experiencing a whole range of crises, both here in New Zealand at times when cyclones come through, but also in Ukraine or Gaza or wherever. So the jury thought that Sarah's work and project will be very relevant around the globe in this day and age. Well done. Thank you. Number 2. Number 2 goes to Alice. Well done, Alice. Thank you. So Alice had the task of going first. So well done. You did very, very well there. But what impressed the jury particularly was this is a project that is utilising a whole bunch of existing technology. It's in the ground already, it's available to be used. So actually using this technique, this approach to manage groundwater will be applicable in drought situations potentially, and in situations of flooding. It's ready to go. So well done, it was really cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We just have a minute follow-up to hand over the ticket. Is that okay? Makes it more formal.
A big one. We need a drum roll, don't we? Especially with a big check. So there we go. Awesome. The first prize goes to Joseph. Well done, Joseph. Give me that for your other hand. Very good. So, I'll come along. So Joseph gave a very polished delivery talk on a project that has really good evidence that it's likely to be successful already, so great preliminary data, and is really very globally relevant. This could influence the lives of a lot of people around the world. So we were really impressed. It seems like a major advance. Well done. Thank you.
Kia ora, Phil.
Thank you.
I just have the honor of first of all, thanking the jurors. Thank you for an amazing deliberation session. Thank you for some amazing and engaging questions along, and for some good decisions along the way. So please just help me in thanking the jurors. So we have a small koha for you as well. We have some books from Bridget Williams' books. But we only got 2 of each, and we tried to decide which one you wanted. And that almost ended up in a very heavy argument. So we said, why don't we just let you choose yourself what book you would prefer, and then you can fight between yourself if you want. So once you go out, just go up to the table up here and pick one of the books. If your favorite book is not there because 2 other people have taken it, then let us know. We'll get you a copy of that one as well. So thank you so much. We couldn't do this without you. I also just want to thank our supporters of this event, the German Embassy, who has been involved with the event in New Zealand since 2014. It started as a scribble on a napkin over at Mojo Coffee Bar over here, where you're deputy head of mission. Then I can't remember what he said. So you can just do this. It doesn't take very much work. You just have to select a few people. And we thought, great, that sounds really easy. And, but it has turned into this amazing event that we all really enjoy. So thank you so much for your support. I also, in particular, want to support or mention the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, who is now funding this. They also see a huge value in supporting early career researchers and trying to develop you to the best you can be and creating networking events. So it's funded out of the Catalyst Fund. So a big thank you to MB for their continued support for this. Thank you to your Axis for your involvement in the event and the training. That's an amazing prize that I perhaps should go on myself. Yeah. Never really know should we clap or not. Like to thank Bridget Williams' book, who has donated the books that we could give out for Koha today. I'd like to thank all the people that are attending here today, and in particular I would like to thank our presenters. Phil has already said it, I'm just echoing what an amazing set of presentations spanning so many different interesting topics. You all did an amazing job. Thank you so much. Give yourself a big hand of applause. This ends the official live streaming session of it. We're going to have a reception afterwards. So if you do have time, just please stand around and have a bit to eat and perhaps a drink of some kind, and encourage you all to go and talk to somebody you haven't talked to before. At the end, of course, we all have to travel home to where we come from. We're going to be have a lot of lovely memories from this event. I just want to wish you safe travels back home. Hoki pai ai ki o koutou kāinga, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you very much for helping us making this an amazing event. Thank you.